Good evening, basketball fans. How are you? Welcome into Hoopsville on this Sunday evening, the 19th of January, 2020. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, and welcome into Hoopsville. If it's about Division III basketball, we've got it covered, and we will do our best tonight to keep it covered. So welcome into Hoopsville, brought to you by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, as we mentioned. Tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, dave.mchugh@d3sports.com, or join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. That's where you can interact with us. We're also on YouTube, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. Also simulcasting the show there as well. I want to thank our broadcast partners at BlueFrame Technology for their assistance as well for our broadcasting success, as it were. Lots to talk about tonight, as there always is on a Sunday for starters, but in general this time of year. This show's got a bit of a conference feel to it, as it were, because, for starters, we're going to have a couple of guests on from teams at the top of their conferences and why getting away from their conferences is not the easiest thing in the world. But we'll also have Bob and Ryan on the show later, not really to break down the top 25 like we have in the past, and we will certainly talk about the top 25, but more along the lines of what conference races should you be keeping an eye on, especially on the men's side. We'll also do so on the women's side as well. So, again, you can tune in and listen to us however you'd like to do so. You can get a hold of us on Twitter, on Facebook, etc. Simulcasting the show. I'm checking out to see if everybody is in there and making sure we're good. Travis already saying Elmer's very impressive against Wheaton, but Wheaton also looked pretty solid, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get hot over the next month. Well, they might, but the problem is they play in the CCIW, and everybody can get hot in the CCIW, to be blunt. And I'd be less than surprised if suddenly Wheaton was a factor. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but I think Wheaton's still piecing things together, but they're going up against somebody who's going to be good at any given night, essentially. Even Milliken's been known to knock off a good team. So you can get hot, but who else? I mean, is the rest of the conference not going to be hot? I think North Central's certainly showing that the early season woes are behind them a bit. You've got Elmhurst, certainly. Illinois Wesleyan's in the mix. Augustana's always well coached. I can't imagine Carthage is going to take the last few weeks lying down. I have a feeling they'll come roaring back, especially with, I assume, Keenan Baltimore is available again at full strength. We'll see. But Elmhurst is coming up on the show. That'll be our second guest. We'll start with Jenna Cosgrove, the women's coach at Rhode Island College. Unfortunately lost to Mass Boston, Mass Boston women's basketball is a crazy squad if you look at it on paper. Lots of wins, but then losses you can't wrap your head around. But Jenna Cosgrove will explain what happened to Mass Boston for her squad and how the Little East will go from there, as it were. Can they dominate that conference? Can they stay in control of that conference? John Baines, then, from Elmhurst, will join us in the NABC Coaches Corner to talk about his squad and the CCIW race. And then Greg Mason from Center will join us to talk about the SAA and the challenges in the SAA, of course, as well. It's nothing's easy. Remember, this is a Center squad that was unceremoniously snubbed last year in the NCAA tournament, or from making it to the tournament. So are they on a mission this year, or are they ready to not let that happen again? We'll talk to that Colonel's group about that, and Greg Mason, their head coach, will join us. Then Bob and Ryan will talk to us. Top 25 double take. We'll certainly have a quick conversation about the top 25, which, as quiet as it was on Thursday's show, it was not so after the fact, and that's on both top 25s. But we'll talk to those guys also about the conference races going on that you should be keeping an eye on. Couple of notes, some of these off the top of my head more than anything. Hats off to Pat Cunningham. The Trinity, Texas men's basketball coach won his 500th last night. Congratulations to the friend of the show, Pat. I know he's been looking forward to getting to that mark. We'll hopefully have him on a show in the near future to talk about winning number 500. And there's been other milestones as well this week and we congratulate everybody who's gotten there. Lots of players getting to 1,000 points. We got some others going in for some other marks. Those are always fun to keep an eye out on. If you talk about the top 25 on the men's side, Wittenberg, I don't want to say got steamrolled by Worcester, but it didn't feel as close as the outcome was. 98-86, the 20th-ranked Scots beat up on Wittenberg. Of course, that game was at Worcester. It was Steve Moore's last Worcester-Wittenberg game at home. So I have a feeling there was some emotions on the Worcester side of things, to say the least. That said, it was just about the time I had finally bought in that despite Wittenberg's schedule not being the most amazing in the world, that they were living up to it. Remember, they had beaten Wabash 84-74 earlier in the week. Worcester certainly woke up the world to that. Knocked off another undefeated team. I don't know what to make of that. Maybe the concerns we had about Wittenberg, and I certainly had a couple weeks ago, were true, but you can't make a lot out of one game. Especially nowadays, you can't make a lot out of one game. You can't make a lot out of a rivalry game sometimes. But congratulations to Worcester on that win. Emory took another loss today, this time at Brandeis. We mentioned that it was going to be tough going this weekend for Emory because of weather. The storm moving through New England. I don't know if it affected Emory in any way, but they lost to Brandeis today, 75-73. Of course, Brandeis team that is playing very well now in comparison to the scandal that they went through a year and a half ago. But that's Emory taking another loss in UAA. That's going to raise some eyebrows, to say the least. And Middlebury lost to Colby 89-82. Remember on Thursday I said this is the chance for Colby to kind of rise up and to the occasion, as it were, have a golden opportunity in front of them. Can they take advantage of it? They did. They won at Pepkin. Not a lot of teams go into Middlebury and win. Colby did. Colby then fouled it up. Or I should say Middlebury sandwiched it, though, with a win over Albertus Magnus early in the week, which we talked about on Thursday, but at least got the win over Bowdoin 93-71. Big win for Randolph-Macon. They held Guilford to 39 points in a 64-39 win. It's a Guilford squad a lot of us thought really good things about not so long ago. Randolph-Macon made a statement in that one. Platteville got the win over La Crosse 69-67, just makes that WIAC race a lot muddier. Remember, Platteville had lost to Stevens Point. I thought La Crosse was the better team there. That game was at La Crosse, and Platteville got the win. That's pretty darn impressive. You then have to go all the way down to 14, which is La Crosse, who takes the next loss, and that's to Platteville. Then you got to jump down to Babson, who lost to Clark. So Babson's had an interesting week. We talked on Thursday about their 18-point comeback against Coast Guard, winning 94-92 in overtime. Then they lost to Clark in overtime, 92-89. Allowed 92 points in both games in overtime. I'm not sure what to make of Babson now at 12-3. Albertus Magnus had a tough game against Colby Sawyer. They barely survived, winning by 3. Springfield lost to Emerson 74-70. They defeated Clark earlier in the week 100-65. Now you figure that one out. So Clark loses by 35 to Springfield 100-65 and then goes out and beats Babson in overtime 92-89. Amherst lost again. This is their 5th loss now. They beat Bates 85-71 but lost to Tufts 96-78. I mean, you go figure that out. Pomona Pitzer held Cal Lutheran to 48 points to get back in the win column. And then you go in the receiving votes category. Remember, this was a tough squad. You beat Amherst. They lost to Hamilton. I mean, they beat Hamilton. They lost to Suffolk early in the week. What I'm trying to say is Tufts got back on the horse, as it were, with wins over Hamilton and Amherst. So, whoa, as they say. Augsburg lost to Gustavus Adolphus. Augsburg is in a bit of a rut right now. Hobart had a lousy week. Not only did they lose to Union earlier in the week, they beat Vassar, then lost to RPI. They only put up 53 points against RPI. By the way, Brandeis went 2-0 this weekend. I forgot to mention that. They beat Rochester at the start the weekend. 76-54. Really impressive weekend for Brandeis men's basketball. Mount Union is now headed towards a behemoth of a game coming up on Wednesday against Marietta. They defeated Muskegon and Otterbein this weekend. Hamilton lost both times this weekend, as we mentioned, Tufts and Bates. Carthage lost twice this week, Wheaton and Elmhurst. They at least got past Milliken, but it took overtime. So, again, go to that conversation in the CCIW. Okay, Wheaton can catch fire, but who are they going to beat? Anybody can beat anybody, or nearly beat anybody. On the women's side, number 1 v. number 4, Tufts and Amherst faced off this weekend. Took overtime, not shockingly enough, and ended in a whimper. It ended up being a Tufts win, 48-46. About as big a lead as they had all night. Amherst had a shot at it at the end. Didn't get the shot off, and then the ball just kind of trickled out of bounds off of the Mammoths at the buzzer. So Tufts stays undefeated, but I don't know if they're number 1. I'll flat out say it. In the meantime, Bowdoin beat Presque Isle this week. Then, as we talked about on Thursday, then came back, beat Williams by 22, and beat Middlebury by 19. This is a Williams squad I thought was back in the hunt, and maybe not. Hope had a good weekend. Amherst, as we mentioned, or week. Amherst, as we mentioned, the Tufts lost. They went 2-1 on the week. Whitman lost to Pacific. Pacific is the number 1 team, I believe, in the women's side of things in the Northwest Conference, because Whitman lost to the Pacific 65-64. Then Whitman went out and beat George Fox 62-54. I don't know what to make of George Fox, who I thought was one of the best teams I've seen in a while. I don't know what to make of Whitman. I don't know what to make of that Northwest Conference race. Maybe on Thursday we can get a chance to check that out. Scranton, by the way, who on Thursday I tried to say beat Drew, which I was mistaken about. They had beaten Moravian on Wednesday. They lost to Catholic 65-62. Catholic got the sweep, by the way. They beat both Scranton squads, I think. Now, am I right about that? I'm conflating things there. We're talking women's basketball, David. So the Drew comment was about men's. I apologize, getting my notes backwards. Chicago women lost to Case Western Reserve today. George Fox women, as we mentioned, beat Whitworth but lost to Whitman. Lacrosse, we mentioned on Thursday, lost to Whitewater, came back and beat Platteville. Austin this weekend lost to Southwestern. I think Southwestern had 2 wins coming into the game. So Austin's probably going to tumble out of the top 25 with that, though they absolutely put their foot down against Texas Lutheran 89-59. Gustavus Adolphus women lost to Concordia Moorhead, but then, let's see, this is, I don't know if that game, we got to check a game here. Hold on, sorry about that. There's a game missing on my sheet here. Augsburg game. Gustavus Adolphus defeated Augsburg 75-64 in what is an absolutely nutty MIAC race. Nutty. Bethel's on top, undefeated at 15-0, 10-0 in conference. There's a 3-horse race, 2 games behind them. Augsburg, St. Thomas, and Gustavus Adolphus, all 12-3, all 8-2. And Hamlin is right behind them by a game and a half at 11-3 and 6-3. So the MIAC women's race is one to watch. Albright lost to Messiah after beating Widener this week. Wacky week for Albright. That MAC Commonwealth race at the top between Albright, Widener, and Messiah is one to watch on the women's side. Albion lost to Trine. NYU lost to Emory, but beat Rochester. Williams had a rough week, man. They lost to Smith, lost to Bolden, but then got past Colby. Brandeis lost to Emory. Emory and Henry lost to Hollins, at least got back against Eastern Mennonite. These are games, some of these we mentioned already. Smith lost again, this time to Emerson by 2. Widener, as we mentioned, lost to Albright, but then beat Hood. Eastern Connecticut lost to Rhode Island College, but as we mentioned earlier, Rhode Island College lost to Mass Boston. Mass Boston lost to Castleton, but beat Rhode Island College. Geneseo now has 2 conference teams that have nipped them. Fredonia, they got a win against, then lost to New Paltz, and then beat Oneonta. By the way, William P. still clicking along at 14-2. So lots of craziness on the men's and women's side. The conference races are fascinating, and that's one of the biggest reasons why we are keeping an eye on them. Travis John says, you're on the money about Hobart dropping the game against Union and RPI. RPI does not have real signature wins, but they're playing really well. And that was the thing, Travis, is nothing about Hobart really stood out to me except for a win over Rochester. But now that Rochester win is losing some luster because Rochester has taken some more hits in the UAA. Good team, but maybe not as good as everybody thought they would be. So it's always tough, to be blunt, when you're looking at these things. I decided to wait on Hobart. Travis, I missed your second message. I apologize. You retracted it. I was watching Hobart, but I wanted to see more, and now I'm no longer watching Hobart. So lots to figure out, and that's why we have guests on the show, and that's why we have coaches, and that's why we have Bob and Ryan on the show as well. So coming up, we'll start with women's basketball with Rhode Island College. Jenna Cosgrove can explain what's going on in the Little East Conference. Again, they lost to Mass Boston in what is a fascinating race on the women's side in the Little East. Then we'll talk to John Baines out of Elmhurst. What can the CCIW shake out to be? And then center men's basketball coach Greg Mason will join us. And then after all that, Bob and Ryan will help break down conference races for us as well. They've picked out a few races they want to target. We'll take a look at some of the women's races as well, though we've mentioned the MIAC. The NESCAC race is a no-brainer. Currently, 3 of the top 4 teams in the country in the NESCAC. That's not going to stay that way in the new poll. It won't. There's no way Amherst stays in the top 4. And the only reason I say that is not because they lost to Tufts. I don't think you punish them for losing to Tufts. I just don't think either team displayed that they're tremendous teams. Listen, Amherst goes and scores 67 points against Wesleyan, but scores 43 against Bates. I think if Amherst was better, they'd score more points than that. And I know they're always defensive-minded, but I don't... That offense isn't shocking me right now. Eck is good and Fox is good, certainly. Don't get me wrong, but it can't be the Eck and Fox show. It cannot be. GP Kromaki's team cannot be relying on Eck and Fox. And how many rebounds were they going to give up to Tufts on the offensive end for Tufts? The WIAC races are fascinating. The OAC race on the men's side is fascinating. So lots to talk about. So remember, on Sundays, we primarily talk to guests and primarily talk about the regions from the Northeast, the Atlantic, the South, and the Central. The Thursday show is primarily targeted for for East, Mid-Atlantic, Great Lakes, and West. It doesn't mean, especially with Bob and Ryan, we won't talk about other things, but guest-wise and targeted-wise, we'll talk about those other things. If you have questions about anything, though, feel free and send them. We'll do our best to answer them, but just FYI, that's kind of where we keep things targeted. We'll take a break. When we come back, talk women's basketball. Jenna Cosgrove will join us from Rhode Island College. We'll talk New England basketball. We'll talk Little East basketball. We'll talk about her 3 years in charge of RIC, the anchorman, and see what she thinks is ahead. That's all ahead, plus our guests, plus Bob and Ryan. Lots to break down, and new top 25s coming out next week. You might be watching an NFL game. Put it on mute. Enjoy it without some audio and listen to us instead. Or if you're listening to us on demand or through the podcast, we appreciate it. All the same. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. More Hoopsville after this.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
I just wanted to get good grades and to do well. But it also made me realize that I have a lot of career goals.
You're there to get a full college experience, not only participate in your sport, but participate in things outside of that. And it's all about growing as a person.
My coaches have helped me with figuring out who I really am. Their lives are dedicated for us to succeed.
Welcome back to Hoopsville. I'm Mike Meller, head coach of Messiah Women's Basketball and member of the Women's Basketball Coaches Association. We really hope you enjoy the show. Back to you, Dave.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, dave.mchugh at D3sports.com. The Hoopsville email address not working like we wanted to. I've almost given up on that email address. So lots of ways to get a hold of us. We're also simulcasting the show on Facebook and YouTube. It's facebook.com/Hoopsville, and it's youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. Sorry, a little bit of a delay or me hesitating. I finally got the Bluetooth devices to work, but now my voice is slightly delayed. The headsets, it's not. That might be a little annoying. Might have to figure out how if we can solve that somehow. All right, so let's talk women's basketball. That's where we'll start. Of course, Northeast region, one of those conferences or regions we talk about. Hard to skip the Northeast. We do skip a region right now of the four for having a guest on, or these shows would go too long. So we try to not skip the Northeast because there's too many going on. But when I looked at the women's side, there's four teams that jumped out at me outside the NESCAC, outside the NUMAC. One of them, well, a couple of them coming out of the Little East. Prior to yesterday, at 14-1, 7-0 in conference play, riding an 11-game winning streak, was the Rhode Island Anchorman. Jenna Cosgrove's team absolutely clicking along, but they ran into Mass Boston. And if you look at what Mass Boston has done this season, you might be confused because Mass Boston has a gaudy record and some crazy results. A loss to Keene State, okay, but they beat Messiah. Lost to Eastern Connecticut, okay, but they beat Mass I'm not Mass Dartmouth. They bought Rhode Island College. So what to make of them? Well, let's start with the Rhode Island equation. Joining us on the BlueFrame Technology Hoopsville Hotline, it's Jenna Cosgrove, the head coach of Rhode Island. Coach, thanks for taking the time to join us. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding? First and foremost, the loss yesterday is going to sting. I know that. What happened in that game, or is it one of those where conference teams know you best and they got you?
Yeah, they got us. Coach Bod did an excellent job game planning, and they came in and they executed perfectly, and they took away our inside game. They shook us a little. They went zone the whole game, and, we had an awful shooting night. And, I thought we also came out very flat, so I think it's better to experience that right now. It hurts, but, on any given night, someone in the Little East could upset you.
Well, that is the truth. Mass Boston, as we mentioned, coming in, has upset some teams already this year, so you knew they were coming in. But it was a low-scoring affair, 45-44. It felt like I was watching an SCAC game a little bit.
Yeah, we struggled for sure on the offensive end. Defense is our strength, but we had a really low-scoring third quarter. Just couldn't get it going. Our energy, it wasn't really our identity ourselves. But like I said, they really did execute a great game plan, and we suffered.
You guys had, again, been running a pretty nice win streak before that. Interesting enough, the previous loss at Williams, a similar outcome. It was a 47-46 loss to Williams, also a low-scoring affair. Is this one of those things where, if we read between the lines a little bit, it's one of those, if you stifle your defense, you probably have a pretty good job or a pretty good chance of maybe upsetting you guys a little bit?
Yeah, the Williams game, it stinks too. Both losses, obviously by 1 point, so they burn. But the Williams game was a little different in the sense that we walked away, and I thought it was one of our best played games. It was early on, but we played pretty excellent. They were a very good team, and it was different in the sense this game we walked away. I didn't think we executed well at all. I don't know if, the girls obviously had some confidence. We had a huge win Wednesday over Eastern Connecticut State.
Sure.
Like I said, we don't get complacent. We treat everyone, we prepare and we move on. And I don't know if, I think it was good for them because, you can't beat anyone with the amount of turnovers we had. We had 24 turnovers and really sloppy. So, I'm just hoping that it's better now than later and we move on, but it was definitely a sloppy game.
Well, something I know you'd also like to back is that third quarter. They beat you 20-4. Now you came back in the fourth and outscored them 20-4 or 12-4. But that's automatically putting pressure on in those final 10. And if you're turning the ball over too, it's adding even more pressure to the ball handlers and everybody else. That every single possession at that point is crucial.
Right, exactly. And our guards, who needed to step up that game, they basically said, we're going to take away your two posts and your inside game and let everyone else try and score. And they, we needed them to step up more. It also really hurt us that Brooke Young, who's one of our co-captains, junior, who's great from the outside. She does a lot for us on both ends, offense and defense. She was out in the second quarter with an ankle injury. So, hit some adversity, and we really went down in that third quarter.
Sure. One of the reasons that the score jumps out of me is you guys defensively are certainly solid. You only allow about a tick under 48 points per game, but you're scoring 68 points a game, nearly 20 points better. So it's the offense that I saw get stifled there. It's interesting they decided not to go for the outside presence. They said, fine, we'll play the inside game with you a little bit. Normally you're a pretty decent outside shooting team, but if there is a weakness, it's probably the outside three-point shooting team game, isn't it?
Yeah, we've been a little inconsistent this year for sure from three-point range. We've got some great shooters, not just a couple. We have many shooters, and they just got to find their confidence because, I think teams know that we've got powerhouses inside. Wilson McBorough, his field goal percentage is the best in the conference. She's solid down low. So they've really got to step up. That's an area that we really got to improve that, and our free throw percentage really showed our weakness yesterday.
Talking with Jenna Cosgrove, the head coach of Rhode Island College. Team is, Coach, the good news, you're still 14-2. That, again, was an 11-game winning streak that came to an end. It's not like it was just some average winning run there. You guys have proven against good teams that you can get back on the horse here a little bit. I assume that's the message to the team moving forward here after the game, but you're still in the catbird seat, for lack of a better description.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is an incredible group. It's my third season now at Rhode Island College, and it's the best mix of kids that I've had. I mean, the chemistry is great. They're enjoyable to be around. I think the loss is good for us in the sense of telling them, on any given night, anyone can win. You cannot get complacent. I think there's some things we need to do a little bit better and harder in practice. And, our defense is there. Our offense has to pick up. It just shows that, I think especially in that zone that UMass Boston went, we've got to get a little bit more comfortable. We're very tough to defend in man, and we've got to be a little bit more versatile.
The schedule's fascinating. I'm used to, obviously, New England's got plenty to choose from in terms of teams.
Yes.
And the Little East is going to give you plenty of games. You've already played 8, so I realize there's an element here. But I'm not used to seeing a very only New England schedule. You have a very only New England schedule, even in out-of-conference. Did it just happen to fall that way, or is there certain circumstances that just precluded that from being any more, and don't take this the wrong way, more creative? And I just mean because it's not outside New England.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be a little, we're a little restricted. I know, next year, and depends on the given year, we'll look to do a trip and get either down south or get away for, either pre-Christmas or post-Christmas.
Sure.
and get us out of the region. But, to stay in New England, there's so many good games you could get, especially with our budget and, depending on what we do around the finals week, you can get great games just, all through New England. So,
sure.
I think each year by year, it will change. Our goal, now, each year for me, I'm trying to increase the schedule so that we face tougher competition and better chances of a non-conference schedule to get us into the NCAA tournament.
I just was worried, located in Rhode Island, that you guys maybe there was something at the border with Connecticut and Massachusetts that they weren't letting you leave. I was just worried that
no.
No, you can just stay where you are. You're not traveling anymore.
We're actually very conveniently located, to be honest. We're very centrally located within the Little East. So, we're not up in we're not up in Vermont or Maine where we're making these long trips down all the time. We're pretty much in the center. So we don't have too many long trips, so I see it as a big bonus for us.
No, that is definitely an advantage, especially this time of year when weather. I don't know what you guys got from the storm system that came across the country this weekend. I know we got nothing that I wanted. We got ice. But I don't know what you guys got. But as a result, you don't have those, as you said, long trips that can really be a burden when the weather turns sideways.
Right, yeah. We're lucky. I mean, I think maybe once or twice since I've been now at Rhode Island College we've been affected, but not yet so far, so I'll knock on wood.
Sure.
But, yeah, we've got, when you're looking ahead, though, we do have a couple road games that are extremely hard to play on the road, especially because they're a little bit longer. We still have to go out to Castleton in Vermont. We still have to go up to Keene State, and those are tough games. Those are tough games on the road, and so I think the team's looking forward to it, but they know that there's a lot of challenges ahead.
Yeah, White and Green Mountains are also a little tricky in the winter as well. Though, stay for some skiing.
Last year we actually, when we were at Castleton, it was our first trip up there. Very tough place to play, close game to the wire, and then we hit snow coming back, so we returned at 3 in the morning. So we're hoping this time there's no snow.
Yeah, it could be in Newfoundland right now, and not even get your car out if you want. Hey, the race, you guys are still in charge of the race. You got a game lead on Eastern Connecticut, or a half game lead. They're 6-1, you're 7-1. And then Castleton's behind you at 5-2. So obviously the games coming up with Castleton are going to mean a lot. Mass Boston, despite the win, those 4-3 in conference. So yeah, it's a tough loss, but I'm sure you're going to the locker room going, all right, we took one, but we're still in top of the conference. We're still in charge of things here. Let's just not let this get to our heads.
Yeah, like I said, it was good. I mean, I wasn't happy after the game with how we played because it was not like us, but, you take a day and then you move on, and the loss is good for us. It shows our weaknesses. I mean, every game will show your strengths and weaknesses, but that one really showed our weaknesses, and I'm looking forward to just moving on, and then we play Wednesday. So,
the last few years in this conference, it's been the Mass Dartmouth show. Last year, 22-5, 14-2 in conference. Eastern Connecticut has been up there. Obviously, back in the heyday of this conference, it was all about Southern Maine. what does it mean to get this program at this juncture at least into the conversation or at least atop the conference? You got good season last year at 18-9. No knock on it. You turned the program around. You were 9-17 not too long ago. But what does it mean to not only be at the top of the conference, but you're now the head of it? Dartmouth's not there, and Southern Maine's not there. It's you guys.
Yeah, it feels great, and I give a lot of credit to Jordan Govan, who's been a captain for the program ever since I've been there, and Brooke Young, she's been a two-time captain. The two of them, it's just been myself and the two of them since I started, and a lot of it's changing culture, and it takes time, bringing in new kids. And, last year we definitely had a lot more talent than my first year, but the culture was still evolving. We didn't have the right kids all together. And this year, it's special. It just has a different feeling. The kids are more determined. They see, we had to teach them how to win the first couple of years, and now it's like it kind of came all together full circle. And there's a lot of firsts this year for myself and for Jordan and Brooke and the program since I've taken over. We hadn't taken down Southern Maine or EastCon or Dartmouth ever in the regular season.
Right.
So we've definitely taken so many steps forward. And it's been, we're doing it one day at a time. And I think they see, they see themselves playing at the top, being at the top and being in a championship. Whereas last year, definitely the first year, but last year it was more of, let's creep our way up. So it's a great feeling.
Well, let's again, your first year there, 9-17, 2-12 in the conference. Last year, flipped. Mirror flip, 18-9. You had 9 wins by the time you were done with the 2018 part of the schedule last year. And you went to the Christmas already knowing you were at 9 wins. You're now at 18-9, and now you're at atop the conference at 14-2. The steps, well, obviously you had to teach them to win. They clearly learned quickly.
Yeah, and we've got pieces that have extremely, helped to do that. And then this is the year where the pieces have all kind of come together. Sophia Guerrier is a force. Getting her was huge. She came to us wanting to be academically challenged more than at the school she was at, New Jersey. She's a 4.0 student. She is just a guard you don't see a lot in Division III. And she's from Boston originally. And Wilshire McBurrow, she was Rookie of the Year last year. So you get the pieces, and Jordan Govan, who's been a staple for the program, her and Brooke Young. Jordan has done so much. Last year she was a kid that was all of a sudden there were about 12 freshmen, and it was Jordan was trying to lead them all. There hasn't been a core key of returners, and this year there's been more of that. So it's been more of that complete package. Just speaking about Jordan for a second, she's not a natural point guard, but right now she's doing everything we ask of her, and she's playing that position. And I think she's 5 assists a game, and she's one of the leading guards in the conference for steals. So the kids are all stepping up. It's something. It's really special to see.
It's certainly stepping up. You got 2 players in double figures, 13.5 points for Sophia. Wilcia McBurrow has 12 points, and then 8 points each for Fatia and Jordan. Leading rebounder, by the way, Fatia, she's 11. She's nipping at a double-double here as well. You're getting contributions from a lot of different places. We might only see 2 scorers in double figures, but you got 5 who are going to probably put up some points on any given night. You've got those hitting the boards. You got assists. It feels very balanced to me.
Yes, Fatia is the heart, soul, and glue to this year's team, for sure.
That's awesome.
She is she brings the grit every day. So she won't put up a lot of numbers in scoring, but that kid is unstoppable on the boards, and she's got this fire in her that we needed. I brought her in to help Jordan lead as 2 seniors. We're still very young, and man, she's special. She is someone we really needed. She's a glue, and it makes us very tough to defend with her and Wilshire, down low in that front court. They are 2 solid big bodies. They're strong. They are tough to defend, and they are extremely good on defense. But you're right. We don't have anyone that's scoring, 20 points a game. We are very well balanced, and they all work well together.
Sure. I want to talk a little bit about how you got to Rhode Island College. We should point out you're an Endicott grad, 2009. So you've got D3 in your roots, certainly. You're from the Boston area, grew up in Sharon, which southwest of Boston, I think.
Yep.
So you certainly know the area, Foxborough and all that, and not a surprise. But you went and left for Fordham for what, about 5 years, if I read correctly?
I was there for 7 years.
7. See, I didn't read correctly. So 7 years there at Fordham where you got the D1 bug, as it were. What was the drawback, not only to D3, and I can get it if you want a head coaching job, maybe that's where you thought the right direction is if you want to coach. But more importantly, why back to almost your roots?
You know, I took a leap of faith when I was about 22. I spent the year after I graduated from Endicott trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, and coaching's always been in my blood, and I was kind of playing around with going to Fordham or going, being like a D3 assistant, and I was at Fordham, and I ended up working for 2 different bosses and working my way up. I was on the admin side as the director of ops. I was an assistant coach. So once I spent a long time there learning all aspects of the game, the Bronx and New York City is really not me. I
hear that a lot from Bostonites.
Yeah, I got a lot of heat, especially about the Patriots and the Red Sox for sure. But I'm not really a city kid, and I spent my time. I did my time, and after I was there, like I said, for about 7 years. I knew I wanted to get back home. My family, I'm very close to my family, my grandparents, and that's just ultimately my goal was to get back home. And I did have that desire to be a head coach. And I obviously playing D3, I knew the special aspect of being a D3 student athlete. And this job opened in about June. Took a while with the process, but I jumped on it quick. I grew up about 30 minutes from Providence.
Yeah, not too far.
And so it almost felt like it was the perfect situation, and I waited it out, and about in August I got an interview. So it was a long waiting period.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty long. By the way, it's also easier to fly in and out of Providence than it is out of Boston. We all know that too. So
yes, absolutely.
You definitely made probably a better choice in terms of that. Back to this season, to be blunt, were you expecting this from this squad to be at the top of the conference, 14-2 at this point, having just had an 11-game winning streak, or are you guys playing with a little bit of house money?
I knew we were going to be good. I knew this group was special, but I can't tell you. I didn't think we'd be 7-1 in conference. Our conference is very strong.
Yeah.
So they've definitely surprised me. I think they've surprised themselves. But now there's like an expectation, so it's amazing to see. I love that they have the confidence. I'm also a little glad we lost now that I was so pissed yesterday. But I think in the long run it will help us out.
Well, I'm glad we're talking to you today. Though yesterday would have been fun. We might have gotten a different perspective on things.
I didn't have a voice yesterday.
Well, I can suspect that. Two more home games here, then 3 of the next 4 on the road. Then you'll finish with 2 of 3 at home. How important is the home side of this as well?
Yeah, it's important. We were undefeated at home, obviously, until yesterday. And, I think we've got this Wednesday and Saturday is our last weekend home games. So they're huge. It's also important, too, especially these next 2, because the kids start classes on Tuesday. They've had a really long break. So they've got to really value, their time is valuable now. So they got to really take advantage of that home court.
Awesome. Coach, appreciate the time. We will probably be catching up somewhere down the road, but congratulations nonetheless, even with yesterday's loss. Congratulations on the season so far. We'll be keeping an eye on the Little East, too, and we look forward to seeing what transpires. We have a tradition on the show. We always give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts to those who may be tuned in?
No, just check us out and keep an eye on us.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. Enjoy, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
Take care. Jenna Cosgrove joining us on the BlueFrame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. Again, lost to Mass Boston, ends an 11-game winning streak, but if there's a team that's going to win that I'm not shocked by, it's Mass Boston, despite what their numbers say. They've had some interesting wins this season. They've got Regis ahead, then Plymouth State, then away at Mass Dartmouth. That's a big game, and then home against Castleton. That's a big game. then Southern Maine, and then Mass Boston. So there's that stretch there after Regis and Plymouth State where they're going to have Dartmouth, Castleton, Southern Maine, Boston, then Eastern Connecticut. So there's a stretch still ahead. This Little East race, obviously far from over. They've only got a one-game lead to begin with. But this is going to be a great race to watch the rest of the way. We thank Jenna Cosgrove for joining us here on the show. A couple quick notes before we take a break. Sorry, Ellen, didn't see these earlier. You said weather had nothing to do with Emory's loss today. Just for the record, I didn't think the loss had anything to do with, or the weather had anything to do with why Emory lost. I'm saying we mentioned that Emory might have some weather trouble. He said the Boston-New York route was only under a winter weather advisory. Emory traveled on Saturday morning to Boston. Brandeis blowout victory versus Rochester was more of a predictor of Sunday's action. Okay, I don't disagree. I'm not saying that the weather has a factor. I'm just saying that the weather in the outcome. I'm just saying weather can be a factor in terms of stress. I went up to see NYU when I thought the Kohl Center was closing that season and closing next year, and I saw WashU there. And I was going to go on to New England, and I don't mind a bad winter travel. I was going to go on to New England to see some games that weekend. Changed my mind because of the weather, not because I didn't want to deal with it, but I just didn't want to get stuck up there in New England. Something goes sideways, and it was going to get harder to get back. So I diverted into northern Pennsylvania and northern New Jersey to see some games instead. So I just know, and you know, NYU was out Saturday morning too, but they were dealing with some bad weather. I just realized that can sometimes just be a headache. So I'm not saying that Brandeis won because of the weather or anything like that by any stretch of the imagination. I'm simply saying that I can see that this was going to be a tough trip for Emory likely because the weather could play a role. That's all I was trying to say, logistics side of this. He goes on to say today was also Brandeis Alumni Family Basketball Day and Brandeis Faculty Staff Appreciation Day, which is always nice. Justin Lunt, I'm going to get back to your comment here in a bit. Going to take a break. When we come back, John Baines will join us from Elmhurst men's basketball to talk about his team and the CCIW race, which is also a doozy this season. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. More Hoopsville when we come back.
Being a part of the different activities and organizations that I've been a part of, I'm actually able to see myself where I'm like, hey, I actually can make a change. I'm one person that can make a difference.
Division III has helped me to develop teamwork skills, critical thinking skills, time management skills.
It's not just about basketball, or it's not just about school. It's about developing yourself as a person altogether.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
For the love of the game. That's what it's all about, they say. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that.
It's more about team and the schools and communities we represent.
And for the many of us blessed with the strength to compete in sport at the college level, we understand that with what we were given comes a special obligation.
Our obligation to help those who have their own special needs and whose love for the game is no less intense.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. Since August of 2011, we and others from Division III campus communities have volunteered more than 250,000 hours, time away from the classroom and practice field, reaching across the country to coach and mentor Special Olympics athletes.
And to learn that in giving, we receive so much more in return. Help us keep that dream alive.
Be part of it.
Get involved.
You can make a difference.
It's on us to stop sexual assault
in any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
to stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
I used to never really talk.
ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, on this Sunday evening. It is the 19th of January. If you got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville. Use the hashtag Hoopsville. Some of you already have, and we appreciate it. You can also email me, dave.mchugh@d3sports.com. I don't believe anybody has done that as of yet. Nope, I take that back. Tom Mitchell has sent us something. Tom, I'll take a look at it in a bit. Rick, I did see a message from you that looked like a lot to get through. I'm not sure I'll get to it till after the show. You can also join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville, where we're simulcasting the show along as we are on YouTube, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. And if you want to chat in those chat rooms, go ahead. The only thing I know with our current setup with BlueFrame Technology is we don't have a chat room with it. But we have all these other ways to chat with us, so take advantage of them. All right, one of the races we always talk about in Division III basketball on both the men's and women's sides, the CCIW race in the Central region. The one thing we know for sure is there will not be an undefeated team in the CCIW men's race. But then again, we haven't seen an undefeated team, I believe, in my lifetime in the CCIW men's race. And that was taken care of already much earlier this season. It's done and dusted. But one of the teams I think maybe was flying a little bit under the radar, as it were. I'm going to have to look up the CCIW coaches poll earlier in the season. But, you know, with the success of Augustana over the years, with North Central coming on, with what Wheaton did last year, Illinois Wesleyan always in the conversation. I don't think anybody looked at Carthage. I don't think anybody was looking at Elmhurst. Both have impressed. Elmhurst, though, continues to impress. They have one loss on the season. They are 15-1. That one loss to North Central, which is why we won't have an undefeated team in the conference. They are playing extremely well, and I am thrilled to say that joining us on the BlueFrame Technology Hoopsville Skype hotline is the head coach of the Elmhurst Blue Jays. It's John Baines. Coach, thanks so much for taking the time, and congratulations on the season so far.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So, I forgot to look it up before to start in this segment, so you can correct me here, but you can also let us know the reality. Did you guys expect to be in the position you're in now, not only on top of the conference, but with only one loss on the season, or did we just miss something completely coming in, especially us national folk?
You know, I think it was a combination of both. We were picked fifth in the league. I felt like going in, we had a really good team. You just never know in our league because, you know, we've had good teams before that have finished in the middle of the pack, and you get done with the year and you're like, man, I thought we were pretty decent. So, you know, I think we thought we would be good. I thought that we had the best guard in the league, and anytime you have that, you always have a chance to win. And, so I thought we were going to be good. And, you know, we've had some big breaks. We had a big win versus Oshkosh. You know, that was a good starting point for us. You know, Derek Dotlich throws in a 40-footer at Carroll the other night, to win by one, you know, so you have some things that go your way, but yeah, I thought we would be in the hunt.
Yeah, we should point out this got rolling early in the season. You also have a win over St. Norbert by 25, which now looks more and more impressive the way St. Norbert is playing this season. Third game out, you defeat Oshkosh, the defending national champs. Now, Oshkosh may not be what we thought they were going to be, but for you guys, that was at Oshkosh too. That had to be a huge shot in the arm, as it were. moving in not only to the rest of the season, but you also probably figured we can play with anybody.
Oh yeah, I mean, you got to have one of those or two. Especially at the beginning of the year, you got to get the ball rolling, and we felt like we were playing real. To be honest with you, the game that really kind of got us going was our first exhibition. We played the University of Indianapolis, and they're a very good D2 team, and we led for probably about 38 minutes and lost by 1 or 2. And I think we got done with the game, and we were kind of like, hey, we think we can be pretty good. And so the pieces have gone together right, and we stayed relatively healthy, and all that kind of stuff has to happen. But that Oshkosh game, I think for us, we said, well, I don't think we're going to be playing anybody any better than that, because I think they're pretty good, and so it gave us some confidence.
Also, a win over Wabash before you started CCIW play. Wabash was highly regarded coming into the season. They're not having the as season as we expected, but still, these are games that for a lot of us, we started taking a look. Yeah, lost to North Central, as you pointed out, but from then, you shook it off. Had a trip out west, beat Laverne and Caltech, came back home, beat Illinois College, Principia, and then that thrilling game against Carroll. Talk to us a little bit about that game, because as you point out, not only a Hail Mary to win it, but a double overtime game to boot. That thing had everything written all over it to start the January side of things.
Yeah, if you haven't watched Carroll play, you're going to see an extremely well-coached, hard-playing team. And everybody, it's not we didn't take them lightly at all. We went up there knowing that. And they throw a lot of defenses at you. They run a lot of sets. They play their tails off. And Paul really knows what he's doing. And we were in a hard-fought game. They played well, and Derek, and people don't realize this. He made this 35, 40-footer. Our guys, before practice, they do a lot of that where they're shooting those shots. And I know it sounds really stupid after the fact, but if there's anybody that can make that shot, it's him. And he did that last year versus North Central, and he's done it in the past. And I was kind of one of those where, I know I didn't expect him to make it, but I expected him to make it.
No, I get it. I see teams do that all the time. So there's always one you start to notice is the guy or the gal who can definitely hit that shot versus a lot of others. But you didn't let off the gas. You beat Augustana at home, beat North Park at home, went on the road against Carthage and Wheaton this past week, got wins. Now, none of these have been easy. They've all been close, but it's CCIW play. I'm not overly surprised by that. I'm more impressed with the fact that you've only let that North Central game be the blemish so far. You've made sure to get the job done at the end. That can reap rewards in so many ways moving forward. Confidence, knowing you're in any game, obviously the wins help. That's got to be beneficial, even if you do take another loss.
Yeah, you say we bounced back and we stayed hungry. Why wouldn't we? They picked us fifth. So, you kind of go in there and you say, hey, fellas, they still don't think we're there yet, And, the thing I like about my guys is they've got a nice little edge to them. We got, I think the latest polls came out and we were 10 in the nation, and they were wondering why we were behind a couple of teams. And so I think, and I kind of looked at them and I'm like, this is why we're where we're at, because you guys have it in your minds that we're better than the teams we're playing. And it's a humble confidence. I don't think anybody's cocky about it, but I think our guys really believe that if we play like we're supposed to, we're going to beat everybody.
No, it makes sense. Not that last year has a lot to do with it anymore, but you were 12-14 last season, 13-12 the year before. It's been a couple of years since we saw a 20-win season out of this program. So I know that they probably had a lot to prove to themselves to some degree. Where was the changing point with this unit? Was it this season, or was there a point last year that you saw things starting to come together?
Well, to take a big step back, with those 20-win teams that had gone to the tournament and were good, we had 9 seniors on that team, and the top 9 players, and they all graduated at once. And we, coaches always have the ability to get some transfers and that sort of thing. We got a full group of freshmen, and we played them. And so I felt like the first year or two out from that, we were probably going to take some lumps. I mean, there were times we were at Illinois Wesleyan down 10, and we had 5 freshmen on the floor, and the assistants were like, what's going on? And I said, what do you mean what's going on? We should be clapping. We're only down 10, and so I felt like, to be honest with you, I felt like this season should have been last year. It's taken a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but there's patience and there's passion. And if you only have patience, you're never going to get anything built. And if you have passion and that's all you have, you're going to destroy your walls. And so I think it's been a combination of those two things. And I think now it's finally come to fruition.
Destroy your walls. I like that part of it. That's good. The one thing I did notice about last year, which was tough, you guys won 9 of your first 13 games of the season. There were some big wins in there. Benedictine was one of those. Buena Vista, which this year is obviously looking very different. You beat Carthage, and you beat North Park, and you beat Marietta 76-72 right around the Christmas holiday out in Phoenix, and you beat La Crosse. You beat Carroll in January, and then it came unglued. You only won 2 games the rest of the way, or 3 games, I apologize. That can put a lot of negative energy into the offseason. To see you guys where you are now, I think that's the most impressive. It's almost like last year didn't happen.
Yeah, the record I don't think was an indication of our ability, and I mean that sincerely.
Sure,
there were a lot of close games there. And right now we're winning some of those
right.
Close games. We lost at Augie. We lost to Wheaton 3 times, and we were ahead at half both times. We lost to North Central where we were ahead 18 at half at their place, and we lost. And just we didn't know how to close games, and or we hadn't figured it out yet. And so I was sitting, you look at that and you say 500 team, but I thought we were better than that, and I think the players thought they were better than that. And we really that Oshkosh game for us was big because we had a lead the whole game, and they came back, and we knew they would, but they came back, and Fravert hit some shots, and we were able to pull it out, and that was the thing that we were unable to do the year before. And I think that if there was any confidence that we got from that game, it was, okay, this is a new season. We're winning these games now.
Yeah, and the only thing I took from last year before we move on to more of this year was the fact that, close, and trust me, I come from a team that the record had nothing to do with how good we were, but you can get beat up in those games. Your mental side of things can take a beating if you can't pull off those games. And I've seen it from some teams this year, especially that I've been close to. And so that's what I'm noticed is it feels different in the terms of an attitude. You kind of alluded to it. Now you're winning those. You'll appreciate this. I don't know if you're a Cubs fan or not, but the year they won the World Series, they were winning close games. They were coming from behind. They were getting tight wins. They were winning late in innings. I'm getting that sense with you guys that you're like, it's 40 minutes, guys. We still got 2 more minutes to play. Let's go.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm a diehard Cardinals fan, so you're lucky.
I'm sorry. I'm losing your connection, right, John. John, I'm losing you. No, I'm kidding.
You
Go ahead.
No, you're right. The guys do have that confidence. We're older too. I mean, Jake Rohde is a redshirt senior. Derek Dotlich is a senior. Levon Thomas and Nick Perry are juniors, and Jay Militello, our other starter, is a redshirt senior. You just got older guys, and they've been around me a long time now. And I think there's something to be said for that. Is that those first couple of years, you don't know who should be shooting. You don't know who's going to be playing right. They don't know you very well. We have a relationship now where the guys know me. They know what the reaction I'm going to give. I know how to talk to them. They know what to say to me to help. And, all those things go into the huddles and that sort of thing. And it just makes for a good culture.
A couple of things I've noticed about your team. Let's talk about them individually in terms of scoring. You mentioned a bunch of the guys. Jake Rohde leading the team at 21 points a game. He's at 20.9. Hands out also, though, 4.3 assists a game and shoots basically 50% from the floor and 45% from deep. But then you got Dotlich, 16.5 points a game. He also shoots 40-plus from beyond the arc, and don't put him on the free throw line. He shoots 95% from there. Thomas is at 14 points a game, 9 rebounds, so he's flirting with a double-double. He also shoots well from the floor at 53%, though. Go ahead, put him on the line. But you got other guys. You mentioned Militello, 8.5 points a game. You mentioned Genko, 6.5 points a game. The guys are – you've got a lot of different options there, and overall you're shooting 47% from the floor. That's a dangerous equation if I'm looking to match up with you defensively because everyone's good.
Yeah, we got a lot of good players. You're right. They know a lot. Jake, to start with, if you haven't seen him, he is one of the best guards in the nation. And I think any coach that plays against us comes and says the same thing to me. And he's just really, really good. And Derek is a premier shooter. He shot 45% from 3 last year, and he can make tough shots. And so, between those two, they're really scoring. And then LeVon Thomas didn't come out of nowhere. He's been a high potential guy for the last couple of years, but has not gotten on the floor. He's had some weight issues and that sort of thing, and had knee surgery. He's lost a ton of weight. He got himself in shape, had a great summer. And so he's totally transformed to himself. And, and like Jay Militello, a weird story on him. He was playing D2 baseball on scholarship at Lewis and decided to quit playing baseball, came as a transfer to play basketball with us last year, and super bright guy. And, last year was his first year back in basketball in 3 years. And so now this was the first year he kind of had an off season. And he worked on his game, and he's our best defender, or one of them, and he's a great rebounder and energy guy. And then, the other guys we have are playing roles, but they're very good at the roles they're playing. And so the pieces are fitting together is what I'd say.
One other thing that jumps out at me, and maybe I've got it misread, but I'm just looking at the roster, and so I see the heights, as it were, in the roster, whether what they are or not. But there's only 4 guys 6'6" or taller, and only one of them is taller than 6'6". He's at 6'9". That's Rabib Job, who we haven't even –
Ibrahim Job, yes.
Ibrahim, thank you. I knew I was going to screw that up. Who we haven't even talked about. So really, you're not a large, quote-unquote, team in the sense of height. A lot of 6'3" guys who can – obviously, you can do a lot of different things with them, but it's not I don't want to say prototypical either, but it's not like you're going to put a guy in the post and back him down. You're not going to necessarily have a guy on his off wing. You have a different look to you, it feels.
We do. We're not a prototypical CCIW team, and we didn't plan on being one. And I say that sincerely. Sure. We went into the season, and we did get a good thing. We went to Spain last May with the returner in our foreign trip, and I think any coach knows that really helps you jumpstart stuff. You get to look at things, and we went over there on a 24-second shot clock, and we were running up and down scoring. And I said, okay, this is it. This is how we're playing, And we said we're going to play a little smaller. And if I think anybody that's seen us play would say that our offensive transition is really, really good. We have our flaws, but if we can get stops, we can really run it out. And I think that's really caused some problems for some teams because they're thinking, okay, we're going to beat the hell out of you, and then we get a stop and it's to the other end, and that's how you kind of put those runs together. And we're kind of a spurt team. And so a lot of times there's about a 10-minute stretch where we get the stops and we get the run-outs, kind of like we did last night versus Wheaton. It was a tie game, and then we got it up to a 15-point lead, and then it kind of, melted away a little bit. But, those spurts are what's winning us these games.
Before we let you go, talk to me about this conference. Obviously, we know it's a tough one to win, and we know it's a free-for-all. Only 4 teams make the conference tournament. You guys are sitting tied atop the conference standings, though technically North Central's got you by the tiebreaker currently. You're on the road this week, you're home this week against Illinois Wesley, and then next 2 on the road against North Park and Augustana. Then 4 of the last 6 will be at home.
Yep.
Are you in a good position here? Obviously, you got a repeat with North Central, though it's at their place.
Yep.
Or are there bigger things to be playing for?
Now we've changed it, so now there's 6 teams in the conference.
Thank you.
So
thank
you.
Right.
So I'll tell you what. There's going to be one really good 7th place team. I can tell you.
Yeah, that's true.
The league is really good right now. I don't know. I'm one of those guys that just looks at the next one, and I don't think our guys have gotten too far ahead of themselves. I think for us, we had not won at Wheaton in 10 years. I mean, we've beaten them before, but it's been a while since we've beaten them at their place. And Augustana, this group that I have right now, had not beaten them. They've had this run, and we just hadn't been able to get them.
Yeah.
And I think for our guys, it's not like, hey, we're trying to win the league, and we are. But I think right now it's like, hey, we're going to try to do something we haven't done before. This team, we have never at Elmhurst had a team that has gone undefeated in the non-conference. And we've had some really good teams, but we've always stubbed our toe on one team. And they said, we got that. I think it's for us, it's just been, let's do this. Let's get this one. Let's do something that we haven't done before. And I think that's working for us right now. And we're just kind of putting one foot in front of the other. And then hopefully we'll get where we need.
Well, John, I appreciate the time to join us. I know there's a long road still ahead. This ain't over, as they say. But you've certainly, as you pointed out, knocked a lot of chips off, as it were, winning at Wheaton, beating Augustana. You're undefeated in non-conference. You guys have had a tremendous season, and I applaud you, to say the least. Yeah, your guys might be 10 now, but keep plugging, as we say. You'll get up there. As always, we leave the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
I want to tell you thank you for what you're doing here, because I played at Wesleyan in the 90s, and watching where it was then and where it is now, and the coverage and even how the kids and recruits get to see D3 basketball. I think the respect level has gone way, way up, and I think a lot of that goes to your credit. And I want to say thank you for what you do over here.
Well, thanks, John. I appreciate it. It's obviously a team effort from our point of view, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Good luck the rest of the way. Looking forward to watching how you guys do the rest of the way, and I know we'll be talking about the Blue Jays. And personally, someday you and Johns Hopkins have got to play against each other, so I can just see the Blue Jays and Blue Jays with mascots that look almost identical and logo, all of that. I got to see it someday. Just make me happy. Would you mind?
We'll do that. If the Cardinals win the World Series, I'll let you do it.
Oh, then that's never going to happen. That's unfortunate. John, thanks so much. Actually, funny story. I work for Major League Baseball in the quote-unquote off-season, and I am now in the clubhouse. You all can read into that. I'm not going to talk about it. I was in the Cardinals clubhouse, and I figured I'd walk out of it the same way I felt as a Cubs fan about the Cardinals. They're nice people there. I came out liking them. It's horrible. Adam Wainwright's a really nice guy. I don't like feeling that way, John.
I got you.
I mean that seriously, though. Good team. Very nice. Hey, John, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Take care of yourself. We'll talk to you down the road.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
John Baines joining us on the BlueFrame Technology Hoopsville Hotline on the Skype edition. I mean that. I actually liked St. Louis. I couldn't believe it. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll keep talking men's basketball with Greg Mason, men's basketball coach of Center in the SAA. We're a little bit behind, so we'll jump to get to him. And it's still ahead. We'll talk to Ryan Scott and Bob Quillman. Talk a little top 25, but more on this conversation. Tom Mitchell's question was regarding the fact of Augustana's chances in the CCIW. Tom, stick with the show. It's a topic coming up for Bob, Ryan, and myself. I promise you. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. More Hoopsville after this.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
It's on us. It's on all of us. And it's time to act now.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
It starts right when you hit the court. You imagine your finest moment. The game-winning shot that gets you to the dance, a monster dunk or no-look pass, and cutting down the net. Sports lets us dream of our own success and prepare us for our finest moments on and off the court.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Being a part of the different activities and organizations that I've been a part of, I'm actually able to see myself where I'm like, hey, I actually can make change. I'm one person that can make a difference.
Division III has helped me to develop teamwork skills, critical thinking skills, time management skills.
It's not just about basketball, or it's not just about school. It's about developing yourself as a person altogether.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go into personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, on this Sunday evening, the 19th of January. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us Hoopsville at D3Hoopsville. Email us dave.mchugh@d3sports.com. The Hoopsville one is not working again for some reason, and it's not my forte. You can also join us on Facebook, where we're simulcasting the show, facebook.com/Hoopsville. And don't forget, you can also join us on YouTube, where we're simulcasting the show, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. But if you're watching us on the BlueFrame Technology system or the Team One Sports app, where you're watching us on the big screen, whether it's Amazon, Roku, Android, or Apple TV, don't leave for those other options. Use either social media or email and send your questions in and banter with us accordingly. Let's talk about the South region now. We'll jump into the SAA. If you look at the top of the standings, not surprisingly, it's Center. Center has been one of those teams that I think has been in the conversation quite a bit at the top of the SAA over the years. By the way, my head tends to block it, but there is a Center uniform back there in the number 2-3. We'll try and reposition ourselves slightly to get that Center uniform a little bit better situated, or maybe move some unis around, but it has a special place in our hearts, and so we love talking to Center. One of the great places I got to call games in my D3 career. Joining us on the BlueFrame Technology Hoopsville Hotline, it is their head coach of the Colonels men's program. It's Greg Mason. Coach, thanks for joining me on the show.
Yeah, hey, Dave, man. It is always a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, I appreciate that. Even when it was so bitter last year?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Even when it was so bitter last year?
Well, talk about the not getting in the tournament.
It's just missing out part. Yeah. You even enjoyed that conversation?
Yeah, it did, and it's that's tough, and I know the committee has tough decisions to make and things like that, and I would not want to be in their shoes. And we just had a really good team last year, 23-5, 4 losses to 21 teams. One of them being Augustana, who was a mid-major D1 team last year. So we thought we had a fantastic year, and then just for whatever reason, we didn't make it in the tournament. So it happens.
Well, let's start with it. You're 16-2 this year and 6-1. We'll get to that. I did want to talk about last year, though. And by the way, folks, just so you know, off the air, Greg was swearing up a storm about not making the tournament. I kid, Greg. I'm totally kidding. 23-5, 12-2. Even for us, came down to the end. I know you and I talked. I'm not trying to give anything away here necessarily, but you and I were going back and forth quite a bit that weekend. And I remember at one point feeling very confident, and you noticed I started losing a little bit of that confidence. Right. Is that season driving you guys, or did you guys take anything from that season and go, you know what, we need to understand, A, our circumstance, but B, make some changes? And I'm leaving that basically open to you. What has last year, where are we seeing that moving forward?
Yeah, well, Dave, in all honesty, we don't talk much about it because it's a little bit of a wound there that 23-5 and again 4 losses to 21 teams, and but we just like today we played roads and just really talked about, hey, let's play to a standard, let's remove all doubt and let everybody know that we're one of the better teams in the country, which we think we are, but I know there's probably about 50, 60 others out there who think the same, and the thing that's just so tough in the South, and I think if you were to talk to Josh Merkel at Randolph-Macon, Jason Zimmerman at Emory, Chris Graves, Birmingham Southern, whomever, it's harder for us in the South to schedule non-league games that boost our SOS while also taking into account a budget in a very trying economy, taking into account college class miss rules, taking into account travel. So it's just something that we in the South have to deal with in a much tougher way than maybe somebody in the Northeast or somebody in Wisconsin or the CCIW. And it just is what it is. I mean, Division I, I'm sure there's leagues that have these conversations about how can we increase our SOS, but it's tough. It really is.
Looking at last year, Augustana, as you pointed out, was on there. Unfortunately, not the result you wanted. You had W&L, which is not too far away for you guys on the other side of the mountains. TCNJ certainly in there. You played that game at W&L. Transylvania in the mix. But when I look at this year, I see Greenville. I see Case Western Reserve. I see Wabash and Transylvania in your first 4 games. I do see Boyce. We can talk about that maybe down the road. But I also see Marymount. And then Transylvania a second time. So I do see a few differences there. I realize your schedule may have been done and dusted, so it's probably a moot point. But it does feel like you guys are just enough outside that Great Lakes region that maybe sometimes you can dabble with it a little.
Yeah, and perfect example is the Wabash game. Now, the trouble with that is it's a one-game trip. It's 5 hours up the road. Played a very, very tough Wabash team. Jack Davidson's a real deal for anybody who has seen play. Yeah. But it cost us one day at classes and over $4,000. So it's very real. And we did get the win, which is going to be great on our resume. But at the same time, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough, to play. I get so many. I send out emails asking people. I'll see on your all's D3 Hoops open dates. Hey, would you like to play? And it's 6-7 hours away. And I get it when they say, hey, I just don't think we want to travel that far. So it's just something that those of us in the South we deal with.
And you're on the northern side of that South. It makes for a very interesting mix, as it were.
Right.
How far is Lexington? How far is W&L when you made that trip last year?
That was, excuse me, Dave. That was a good long trip, a lot longer than I thought it was.
Okay.
I want to say closer to 8 hours and 7.
Okay.
So, yeah, and we went there, Dave. We went there. Now, obviously, we knew W&L was a really good team, but we also knew Cabrini was there.
Right.
And, it just so happened that Cabrini was not as good as they were maybe 5-6 years ago.
Right,
so that was part of the allure, too. And that's the thing with SOS. It's so hard that you may catch a really, really good basketball team that just doesn't have the record that you anticipate. And that affects you as well. So it just, we all deal with it. We all deal with different hiccups in the SOS, and we just try to do the best we can with it.
I remember when Transylvania came to the Hoopsville Classic at Stevenson, Brian thought the trip was shorter than it was.
Exactly.
So I get it.
Yeah.
I get it to some extent. I think my trip to you guys, it was a little further. I mean, I realized what it was, but it was further in my planning stages. I ended up spending the night. I did a Hoopsville show on Thursday. I then left that night, drove to Western Maryland, or I may have even gotten just into West Virginia, spent the night there, and then completed the trip because I knew it was a little bit longer than advertised, maybe, or dreamt of is maybe a better way of saying that. All right, so let's talk about this season. Just 2 losses. Case Western Reserve tripped you guys up in Game 2 of the season at their place, 79-75. Sewanee, maybe surprisingly, got you guys. I think what jumped out at me is they only held you to 59 points. But you were coming off of a game against Boyce. And listen, I'm not going to pretend I have a clue who Boyce is. Did that have a factor, or was it just that Sewanee got you at the right time, right place?
Yeah, Sewanee played outstanding, and we didn't play very well at all. It was a good wake-up call for us. And it's the week before finals.
Yeah.
So we had a little bit. That's the reason why we played Boyce. We want to keep things close. We just so happened to go to Sewanee, and they blew our doors off. I mean, it was, Dave, it was, excuse me, it was as bad a loss as we've had since I've been here. And you know, we just we've gotten better, and I think we're on a winning streak. And if you want to know the truth, I don't know what our winning streak is. I think maybe 9 games since that Sewanee game. So you just play each game, and like today, we just beat Rhodes. You just go, one day at a time, and give your best effort, and we're doing a good job. We're playing good basketball right now.
That's why I'm here. It is a 9-game winning streak. You beat Rhodes and Hendricks this weekend. Nearly identical scores, 80-58 and 81-59. At home, you played the last 4 at home. The tough part of that, though, means 4 of the next 6, though, are on the road. You will finish at home against Sewanee, but you're on the road against Hendricks and Rhodes, and that's probably close to your longest trip in conference. You're home against Birmingham Southern Millsaps, then on the road with Barry Oglethorpe. That ain't short either. You've got some of the toughest part of this schedule ahead of you.
Yeah, and that's something in our league that we're an outlier. We're 4.5 hours to the north of anybody. So, we'll get in. Millsaps, we played them 2-3 weeks ago. We got in at 4:26 in the morning, and then going down to Hendricks. Now, luckily, we get to leave a little bit early, but these are 9-10 hour trips. So it's not easy. And the thing with Hendricks, now we beat Hendricks pretty bad on Friday night, but they were without maybe their best player, Jacob Link. And he was back today and had, I think it was 17 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. So Friday night in Conway is going to be a challenge for us, no doubt.
Yeah. This race in the conference, you obviously learned from last year because it was, Sewanee, that put you guys in the position you got put in the conference tournament. It's important not only to control things through your gym, make everybody come to you guys, but as a result of that, also try and make sure you guys get into the tournament the easy way, quote unquote, the easy way, and that's win the AQ. So these games may be on the road, but I'm sure the message of last year, while maybe not saying, hey, remember last year, I'm sure the message is, guys, we got to get the job done here.
Exactly, and this is we start 4 seniors. This senior group has had a great run so far at center. 2 regular season titles as sophomores and juniors, and obviously last year we were very, very close to a tournament title and an NCAA tournament berth. And Dave, this team has won 54 of our last 64 games, so 54-10, and going to be 3 1,000 point scorers. So it's a special group. They've seen many, many things. Led by Perry Ayers and Jacob Bates, and our guys, we're going to be ready. We're going to be ready. Now, we may go down and be ready, and Hendricks just outplays us. That's very possible, but it's going to be a team that's ready.
Jacob Bates leading the way, by the way, point-wise at 20.8 points a game. You got 4 guys in double figures. Art Walker at 11.5. Dawson Crump off the bench is scoring 10.5. Perry Ayers, as you mentioned, 10 points a game. I'll mention Rakes as well at 9 points a game. They all contribute on the boards as well. Bates at 8.5 boards a game. And I was looking for assist numbers. They all dish out the ball, too.
Yeah.
That foursome, that quad is really good.
Yeah, I want to say our assist to turnover ratio is almost 3-2 as a team, and that's really, really good. And, you know, when you have Jacob Bates, I mean, this year he's been phenomenal. I mean, right now, very possibly at this point, Conference Player of the Year, shooting 47% from three-point, is a really good passer. And Davey's only 6'5", 185, very undersized, but he's a tough matchup. And, you know, 2 weekends ago we're playing Millsaps, and they have 6'11", 245, a D1 transfer, and then their other post is 6'9", 225, a D1 caliber athlete. Jacob went for 37 points.
Yeah.
So he's a tough matchup for others.
And Carter Bauman, I don't want to forget about him. He's
Yeah.
playing and starting every single game. He shoots 45% from the floor, gets 5.5 points. But that's the thing that jumps out at me besides what he's shooting. Bates shoots 62%. Nearly everybody else who gets significant numbers shoots better than 43%. As a team, you're 49.4. That's staggering offensive numbers in terms of shooting percentages.
Yeah, and Dave, that's the big difference between last year and this year is, and not only from two, but from three. We just shoot it much better from the perimeter this year. Like you're saying, 38% three-point, 49.5. I want to say Bates is shooting like 62, 63% from the floor.
Yep, 62.
And I'll tell you a great story about it. So today, Perry Ayers was in foul trouble, and he was preseason All-American. And so we played Jalen Williams, a sophomore guard who's happened to have a good day. And Jalen's playing well. And with about 12 minutes to go in the game, Perry comes up to me and says, "Coach, let him play another minute or two," because I was getting ready to take him out. So that tells you it's a very unselfish group. It's a high-character group. And, you know, again, you have to have that to win 54 of your last 64.
Perry Ayers, I'm just saying, could get a sponsorship deal from a sparkling water company out of France. Just saying, it's a great name. Let's talk a little bit about you. Some milestones recently. You won number 400. Your dad was on hand. They gave you not only the ball for 400, they gave you the ball for 3-3, which is the all-time winningest coach at center. We got a couple picks. I'm going to put them up on the video for those who are watching. Your dad means a lot to you, obviously, for a lot of reasons, but it must have meant a ton to be able to have him there for you, Coach.
Right, yeah. And Dave, I appreciate you doing all that. And I do want to say hi to Mom and Dad. Dad came up and bought a steak dinner for me after our win today, and I think they're listening on the way back if they can figure out all the technology with the phones and everything. But yeah, that was special. And I had my wife out there and a little 2-year-old baby girl, and Mom was taking pictures. So just a special moment for our family. And yeah, 400. I mean, Dwayne Rebo told me recently, one of my mentors. He said 300 means you're a good coach. 500 means you're an old coach. So I don't know, Dave. I'm kind of right in between. Yes, I guess I'm approaching old coach, and I don't want to do that, but at the same time, it is what it is. But a lot of great players, a lot of great coaches, and our president here. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to meet John Roush. He's the best, absolutely the best. He's retiring at the end of this year, so we've had a special run here, and want to keep it going.
Yeah. By the way, the picture's great. Your daughter's stealing the show. But I have one of those. She steals the show often. Right before this segment, actually, she came down along with her brother to steal the show. Coach, I'd love to talk more. I have a feeling we're going to talk to you down the road. Before I let you go, obviously the goal is clear. Go win the SAA and control your own destiny. I get that. But how hard is it to do with all the distractions of life?
You talking about getting in the Pool C?
Well, just how hard is it for your student athletes, for you, and for everybody else to stick with the goal at hand when you have so many distractions outside of that?
Yeah, good question, Dave. And it's the academics here are a challenge. I'm always I graduated here in '94, so I have a great deal of respect what our guys do. The biggest thing is Friday night's game is going to be really, really tough. Hendricks, they'll have Jacob Link back. If we take care of business there, then we start kind of controlling our own destiny with winning this regular season title. And then once we get to the tournament, you just kind of put your best foot forward and hope it's good enough. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And with this group, I really hope it's meant to be because they deserve something wonderful to happen to them after what happened last year.
Well, certainly fun to chat with you about it. I appreciate you taking the time. And I wish you guys the luck. I'd love to talk to you more, but you know what? Here's the deal. Go win, and we will be talking to you more. talking about playing in March, which is always important.
Yeah.
As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
Yeah, hey Dave, and somebody may have said it already, but I really want to give a shout-out to Pat Cunningham, our really good friend, who's done so much for Division III basketball. He's president at NABC right now for Division III. He 500 wins, I want to say, on Friday. And, I know Pat's been on here many, many times, and just a wonderful coach, wonderful guy. So I want to congratulate him and just really appreciate, again, all you do for Division III basketball.
Well, thank you. I did congratulate Pat earlier, but trust me, you have a little bit more gravitas in that category than I do.
Awesome.
I texted Pat, and he said something about leave me alone. Oh, no, he didn't. I'm just kidding.
That's Pat.
He's hosted me at his house. I can appreciate it, his love anytime. Thanks for the time. Good luck. Stay safe. Enjoy the rest of the season. We'll look forward to talking to you down the road.
Hey, thanks so much, Dave. Really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Take care, sir. Greg Mason joining us on the BlueFrame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. We'll get our BlueFrame read in here in a little bit. But again, they're on the road at Hendricks and then Rhodes. That is not an easy trip. But home against Birmingham and Southern and Millsaps, and then Barry Oglethorpe on the road. Those are two very difficult trips still ahead of them, with a little bit of a home stretch there in the middle, and then they're home against Swanee. So this SAA race is not over by any stretch of the imagination. They've got a game lead on Oglethorpe and Hendricks. You catch the drift. We'll talk more about that conference and all the others coming up next. Bob and Ryan will join me, and we'll talk a little top 25, but mainly we'll dive into the conferences a bit. And we have some questions from you we'll try and get answered as well. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com for the WBCA NABC Studios. More Hoopsville after this.
College has given me the flexibility to pursue my passions and my interests, and I've recreated my identity for myself aside from just being an athlete.
My greatest personal discovery has been that I am capable of doing things that I didn't know I was capable of doing.
To be able to study what I wanted to and continue to play the sport I love, all of those things came together very nicely in one package in Division III.
Cheer for the stumbles. That he should have had that. And the tears that linger. For in those moments, greatness lies. There, you will find the provoked, the determined, the unified. It's in those moments that champions are born.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
Being a part of the different activities and organizations that I've been a part of, I'm actually able to see myself where I'm like, hey, I actually can make a change. I'm one person that can make a difference.
Division III has helped me to develop teamwork skills, critical thinking skills, time management skills.
It's not just about basketball, or it's not just about school. It's about developing yourself as a person altogether.
It's on us. It's on all of us. And it's time to act now.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
I coined my definition of success in 1934.
My definition of success is peace of mind attained only through self-satisfaction and knowing you made the effort to do the best of which you're capable. It's like reputation and character. Reputation is what others perceive you to be. Character is what you are.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. I was just checking out. More questions coming in from all of you. Thank you, Robert. You got a similar question to somebody else we got via email. Tom asked us a similar question. We'll get to that in just a moment. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, on this Sunday the 19th. It's a holiday for many people tomorrow, so I hear my kids playing a game with Mom upstairs. I'm a little bit jealous. You got questions for us? Tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, dave.mchugh@d3sports.com. Join us on Facebook where we're simulcasting the show, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Also on YouTube, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. But again, if you're watching us on the BlueFrame Technology portal, whether it's on our show page or it's on the Team One Sports app, don't leave those. Stay there. Just interact with us other ways. All right, so every Sunday we have our top 25 double take, and we are joined by the usual suspects. We'll warn you as we start to bring them in here. Not talking top 25 as much. We'll dabble here in a moment. We're going to talk a little more conference related. Interestingly enough, the three of us kind of on the same page with that, despite not talking about it earlier. But Bob Quillman, who you see on screen right, and Ryan Scott on screen left. Gentlemen, welcome in. I said on Thursday, and I knew I would jinx it, that it had been a quiet week so far in the top 25, and maybe the weekend would get through with it being somewhat quiet. I was wrong. It was yet another ugliness over the weekend in the top 25. You guys were pretty settled in who you felt your top 10 to top 15 teams were, and it was everybody else. Do you still feel that way as we continue to take hits left and right?
I'll let my esteemed colleague Ryan start on that one, and then I'll jump in.
So I went back and this week, because of all the upsets, I scrapped the ballot entirely. I started from scratch today and spent most of the afternoon going back through. And I did end up with 8 of the same 10 teams I had in the top 10 last week. They were different order, obviously, but I don't feel too bad about that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm still in a pretty good place. I think the eye-opening ones for me were, Wittenberg, because of the lack of, I guess, strong games they've had leading up to this one. Sure. They've had fairly weak schedule, so that was eye-opening to see the degree that Worcester won that game. Although, look, it was at Worcester, which is one of the hardest places in Division III to win. It's a rivalry game. I think Platteville losing to Stevens Point, I believe that was at Platteville was the part of that one that surprised me. I need to double-check. It was at home, right? So that surprised me. And, the Emory loss today to Brandeis, to me, I put that in the category of like 2 good teams playing, and one of them's on the road, and it was a tough game. And I think very highly of both of those teams after watching how that one played out.
Yeah, I agree. I said this at the beginning of the show about the Wittenberg. Again, same concerns with the schedule that I thought they were leaving in the bast leading up to that game. And in the last 2 weeks, I said, okay. I'm starting to see who Wittenberg really is. I'm going to start forgetting this concerns about the schedule thing. And then Worcester beats them 98-86, and it's more about letting up 98 points. I think that's bigger. But I also said at the beginning of the show, listen, it's Steve Moore's last Worcester Wit game at home. It is at Worcester. I shouldn't be shocked. But it's the 98 points that gives me the greatest pause, I think, in that entire thing.
You also have to remember that Worcester shot out of their minds. I think almost 70% from the field for the entire game.
Good point.
That's one of those that it's going to be hard for anybody to beat them when you're shooting that well.
That's a good point. Very good point. Sorry, I just got surprised by something.
The other thing I mentioned, just when we talked about the Platteville loss, I believe Quentin Shields got hurt right at the start of the second half of that game, which is also one of those lose your point guard, one of your best players. That's a tough one to overcome in the moment.
Yeah, and that was a big result too. When you look at like where Platteville sits and where Stevens Point sits in terms of the conference and Pool C, these WIAC games like that one, boy, are critically important. So that was a result that will be felt all the way up until Selection Sunday. That was a biggie.
Yeah, the whole I was more. By the way, you pointed out Platteville losing a point. I was impressed they then got back and beat La Crosse.
At La Crosse.
Right, at La Crosse. I had La Crosse ranked higher, and I kept thinking to myself, well, geez, if they're losing a point, I don't know if they're going to be able to take off La Crosse at La Crosse. That told me more, and I'm also more baffled at the fact that Oshkosh just isn't – it isn't their season in terms of living at all up to the expectations, even half the expectations of last year.
Well, they're tied for first in the best conference in Division III, though, Dave. I mean, right? So, look, you say not living up to half. I mean, they're living up to about 82% right now in my book. I mean, they're 4-1 in the WIAC, and they don't care about the Carthage game. They don't care about the Emory game. They don't care about the Elmhurst. All they're thinking is, we're going to be the number 1 seed in the WIAC, and that conference tournament is going to come through our building.
Fair.
And we're going to win. So, I don't know, Ryan, in my book, like, I think Oshkosh is a dangerous animal right now.
Yeah, it's one of those, though, that with so many losses, they really have to win the conference at this point. You know, they're going to take it probably at least one more loss in the regular season, and then if they take another one in the tournament, they're just out. So they really sort of back themselves in a corner, which maybe is going to come for the best. You know, some people respond to that really well. The other one I was just going to mention while we're talking was how impressive Colby was over the weekend.
Yes.
Got to see that. We weren't, their schedule wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great coming in. And then to be able to go and get the wins, especially the way that they beat Middlebury, that really was impressive. And it really makes their whole season look a whole lot better right now in perspective.
That was a huge win for Colby because you don't really know exactly what to think of Colby coming into that game. You've got that one circled. And then when they win that one, all of a sudden it's like validation, and they're positioned very nicely now, like in the region. I think they're probably 1 or 2 in the region at this point, and they're in great shape.
And a team that if we were doing, we're not going to do our debatable and deep dive teams, but if there was one team that I think this weekend would have put them on my deep dive list, it was Brandeis, with a win. Nuts. Demanding win over Rochester, but then to also follow that up with a win over Emory, both at home. That Brandeis program's come a long way in 18 months. Let's remember, a little over 18 months. That program, Houston cheating scandal in Division III. What happened at Brandeis was just as shocking. And to rebuild that quickly, really impressive. Women are doing well too, I should point out, but. They would have been on my deep dive. I'm really impressed with what they do. They're 11-3. They're 3 losses to WPI Suffolk. Suffolk apparently has beaten everybody. They beat Tufts, and Tufts comes back from those two. That loss to win 2 this weekend. And they also lost, ironically, to Tufts, did Brandeis. So, good losses outside of the what the heck is the Suffolk thing doing. But so that was going to be my deep dive if we had one. So there are some really fascinating results this week.
And I think the thing to remember is the impact of one game. I was earlier in the day this morning. I was trying to sort out the Northeast region and how it might be ranked. There's 11 teams that get ranked in the Northeast. So
Bless
I'm ranked
you, son.
Northeast.
Bless you.
And I don't have. Yeah, I didn't have Brandeis in my top 11 in the Northeast. I had them like number 12. And then after the game, when Matt Snyder reran his numbers, all of a sudden I realized that Brandeis is not only ranked, they're ranked like 4 or 5. If you look at what that one win did to their winning percentage, their SOS, their RRO. And so I think the message here for all teams in Division III right now is one game is so big, whether you win or lose. The difference between that is enormous at this point.
I agree. And that's why I think, we'd love to see more regional rankings. But let's be honest. If we add 1 or 2 more, teams regionally ranked in those, and we've seen it, are not even in the conversation 2 weeks later because one result or 2 results can shake everything up. and change it so dramatically. And that's why the once ranked, always ranked, we thought on paper would make sense, and in reality just caused a nightmare. Was it Randolph-Macon? No, it was Randolph Randolph-Macon had like 22 of their 25 games against regionally ranked opponents as a result of that. Some of the questions I got about the CCIW we will tackle because we're going to jump into that. So we'll hold off, Robert and Tom. I will get to those. One quick question, guys, I thought I'd throw at you. A friend of mine, Dan, listening to the show, I'm not sure if he's still tuned in or not. He says, can you rank the decades the best in the UAA basketball? Where does the 1990s rank? My quick reply to him was, I thought the 2000s was the best. The lead up to what was back-to-back WashU wins was certainly really good UAA basketball, a little deeper than they are in recent years. But where would you put, and it's probably a little bit of a fool's errand to hear, but that decade as good as you think it is, or is there another decade we should be talking about?
I remember the late 90s in the UAA where you had the Derek Reich Chicago teams that were ridiculously good, and a little before that when Pat Cunningham was the coach of Chicago. At the same time, a little before that, WashU, when they had Kevin Fokel and some of those, and then you had Rochester, of course. And it seems like the era where WashU won the back-to-back championships, and then there was all these other good teams around them. It seems like the best UAA decade. I don't know, Ryan, it's a tough question to get on the fly, but that seems like that 2000s era was the power.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it feels like. That was sort of the end of the UAA being, sort of indisputably amongst the very top conferences. Obviously, they're still way high up there, but we don't maybe fear them as much now as we did back then. But that 90s 2000 period was really, really good.
Yeah, you're right. And there was not that there isn't a lore now, but there definitely was a lore then of what the UAA was. And I think it helped that on the women's side, you also had WashU, who was under Nancy Fay unstoppable. You also had a good team in NYU. Rochester was good. That's what's scary about that conference, is they're good in so many different ways. And we've been talking about it. While I'm talking to you, I get a message going, hey, you ought to get my UAA women's coach on the show. I've gotten 3 others this week about other UAA programs I should get on the show. Yes, they're all good. They give me all kinds of problems because they're in 8 different regions. But yeah, no, that the UAA has always been good. The lore may not be there as much because we now see so much basketball and there's parity. But those 90s seasons were awesome. I just thought the 2000 years were darn spectacular.
Yeah, we should say for people today who can see every single D3 game you want, except for Penn State Berks, apparently. I tried to watch their game yesterday. They didn't have any live stream going on. But any other game that you want to see anywhere, you can see now. Back then, there really was this mystique of these teams from these giant schools with great academic reputations flying around the country to all their games. That was a big deal, especially when, you sort of didn't see them on the court all the time.
Yeah. That's a great point, Ryan. That's a great point. And one of the bigger reasons, we can go back to my rant on Thursday about not hiding your games behind on demands. I'm going to stop. All right, so let's talk. We're going to dive into conferences here. It was interesting because I emailed these guys. I said, guys, we always do our usual deep dive and stuff, but I feel like we're going to, run out of teams because we can only talk about so many teams. And so let's maybe rotate this. Let's talk about something else. And Bob fires back and goes, hey, let's talk about conference races we should be watching. I'm like, well, that's ironic because my theme's about conferences this week. Bob, you guys have kind of some topics, softball them. If I got some ideas, I want to jump in there. But I like the list you guys have come up with. I don't know where you want to start necessarily. I've gotten a bunch of questions, so I feel like maybe CCIW men's race, we had John Baines on earlier, is a good one to start with. You got Elmhurst and North Central tied atop. North Central technically the tie break with 1 game to play between those 2 teams. It's a race for 6, thanks to John reminding me of that today. I just can't keep track of all that. By the time we're done, Bob, it's going to be 8, just warning you now. I'm bugging Bob. I'm just bugging Bob. And listen, some of the questions are, can Augustana even, where do they stand? Are they going to get back into it? So many people are used to Augustana kind of running the ship here.
Well, and I just realized before we went on that I'm wearing my Elmhurst blue.
It's nice considering your IWU green last week.
I didn't intend to do that for Coach Baines, seeing as my alma mater and Coach Baines' team play each other Wednesday, but I digress. So the CCIW race there's 4 teams right now. So Elmhurst is 6-1, North Central 6-1, Augustana is 5-2, Illinois Wesleyan's 5-2. Now, if you look at those records, it's almost a dead tie because of where the games have been played. And what I mean by that is Illinois Wesleyan is done playing at the 2 toughest places in the league to play, which is at North Central and Augustana. Now I'm talking the last 5 years or so.
Right. Historically.
If you look at kind of Elmhurst and North Central at this point, they still both have to go to Augustana. They both have to come to Illinois Wesleyan. You can kind of go down, and what my point is you have 4 teams that are very, very close, and Wheaton is just a game behind at 4-3. So the question about can Augustana get back in it, they're not out of it. To me, Augustana, those 4 teams, in my opinion, are just about tied, and it's going to come down to games like Wednesday. Illinois Wesleyan, if IW goes to Elmhurst and wins, the race changes dramatically right there. So I think too close to tell, and you've got legitimately 5 teams in it right now, as I see it.
I don't know if Ryan has a follow-up. I'll just ask this. Robert asked, what does Augustana need to do to beat North Central and IWU to beat Elmhurst? Well, hold on. What does Augustana need to do to beat North Central and IWU to beat Elmhurst Wednesday for a 4-way tie in the CCIW? Because, folks, if you don't know about the CCIW men's race, they like to absolutely make it as difficult as possible and eat their own young. Can legitimately this year, let's forget how good Augustana has been over the years. Can Augustana beat North Central at their place? And is Illinois Wesleyan good enough, the way Elmhurst is playing this year, to beat Elmhurst at their place?
But both answers are yes, without question. So
that was boring.
Yeah, both. So what does Augustana have to do? Very simply, they got to pound the ball into their 6'11", 275-pound center Micah Martin, who's more of a mid-major Division I size guy.
Yeah.
North Central's center is 6'4". Matt Caponetti is 6'4". So the answer to the question is Augie's got to get it into big Micah Martin. And then they've got to use Pearson Wofford getting the ball and doing what he does, which is spinning in the lane and shooting it with his left hand, his right hand, little 15-footers. And they have plenty of – Austin Elledge is a stud. What does Illinois Wesleyan have to do at Elmhurst? I think the Titans probably have to shoot it well. The Titans are – if the Titans shoot the 3 well with Keandre Schumacher and Luke Yoder and those guys, the Titans are a team that has to be clicking and shooting well to play well. But those games could easily go the upset route.
Ryan, did you have anything to follow up?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say the same thing. Augustana's got to get the ball inside, and Micah Martin has got to be focused and disciplined, because that's really when, he's prone to turnovers from time to time, and he's got to take care of the ball when it's in there. And the same thing, I feel like IWU's got a higher hill to climb just because the strength of those teams is both in the backcourt, and they've got to beat a team that's got maybe a better backcourt than them, maybe the only one that's got a better backcourt than them this year. Yeah. And so that's a harder game for them, but certainly both winnable.
Bob, can Carthage get back into maybe more of the driver's seat here? Is things with Baltimore okay, or are we seeing this wonderful beginning of the season story starting to dissolve?
I think they're going to be a hard out the rest of the way, but I don't see Carthage really being a factor at the top 2. So like they're 3-4, and they're 3 games out of it in the loss column at this point. I don't think anyone wants to play Carthage with Keenan Baltimore or without. Kudrowski is an absolute stud. He's great. Yeah. They're very well coached and they're dangerous, but I don't think Carthage is a factor in the championship picture. They're probably going to make the tournament and be the team no one wants to play in that conference tournament.
True.
Right. I was going to say this might be the year they really regret going to 6 teams, because you could easily be Carthage winning this whole thing.
It could. It absolutely could. All right, let's jump into another one. Ryan, I'll go to you. We'll start in the West. This is a race that, we got spoiled, sir. The Northwest Conference race is not what we're used to.
No, I mean, it may end up being what we're used to. We'll see. Right now we've got 3 undefeated teams. Linfield, Whitworth, Whitman all 6-0. They're 3 games ahead of everybody else. That's sort of the class of the conference. We're used to Whitworth and Whitman, and I still think we might be. Linfield is going to be punching up to beat either of those teams, but it's certainly possible this year. And just the fact that we don't know what's going to happen is different than what we've had the last few years.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll just quickly say on the women's side of that conference, as I said in the beginning of the show, is insane this season. Pacific is on top at 6-0, 12-3 overall. Whitman's at 5-1. Linfield and Willamette at 4-2. George Fox, who's 11-4, is 3-3 in conference. I saw them in Vegas. Thought they were definitely a top 5 program, and they have done nothing but stumble in conference since. And then Whitworth women are 9-6, 2-4. That women's race, by the way, insane. I don't know what to make of that. Bob, I'll jump back to you. If we're talking CCIW in the Central, we got to talk about the WIAC. Speaking of eating their young, the WIAC is known for it, and we were touching on it a little bit earlier here. How does this one break down?
Yeah, it's really the same as the CCIW in that you have a whole bunch of teams that are right in the middle. So you have Platteville 4-1, Oshkosh 4-1, La Crosse 3-2, Stevens Point 3-2, and then Eau Claire's 2-3, River Falls 2-3. I think River Falls will be a team that starts to slide out of that picture. But those top 5, including Eau Claire, those are all 5 of those teams are in a Pool C conversation right now. They're all in different degrees of contention. I have a hard time handicapping that. I think it changed when Platteville lost at home to Stevens Point, but then they made up for it by winning on the road at La Crosse. Right. I still feel like Platteville is the best team, but then I look at that and I think, so you have the defending national champions that still have Flynn and Fravert. You've got Stevens Point that plays probably some of the best defense in Division III. La Crosse has been great from start to finish this season. So I don't think you can pick right now a WIAC winner. If I was betting, I'd bet on Platteville, I guess.
It feels like weather in the Mid-Atlantic area, but I'm sure other places have this joke. If you think you figured it out, wait 10 minutes. Or in the case of the WIAC, wait 1 game, and we'll change it all. You're right. I think it's going to be a fascinating race, and what I thought was going to happen has gone on its head, but I've had 3 thoughts this year anyway. So, Ryan, let's jump back to you. Speaking of the West, MIAC race. On the women's side, I'll touch base on that in a second. But on the men's side, it feels like just when you think you figured this one out, there's some curveballs, but I really like how St. John's is playing.
Yeah, St. John's is playing very well, and I think at this point, they beat St. Thomas. It was not as close as you would have expected. I think they've clearly established themselves in first place out there. The other one that Bethel keeps hanging on, and not quite sure what they're going to be doing this year. But it's one of those that again you may see some Pool C considerations if somebody who's not St. John's or St. Thomas comes through and wins that tournament, because they're certainly capable of doing it.
Well, that's true. And what's crazier is that's a conference that doesn't allow a lot of out-of-conference schedules, but the teams that are serious go out and make their SOS's solid numbers in that out-of-conference schedule, and they do steal some bids. We've seen that recently. On the women's side, Bethel's undefeated at 15-0, 10-0 in conference. It's a logjam behind them. Augsburg, St. Thomas, who's gotten back into the mix here, and Gustavus Adolphus, all 12-3, all 8-2. And Hamlin's right behind them at 11-3 and 6-3. 4 of those teams that I mentioned, all but Hamlin, are in the top 25 in the D3Hoops.com. That's a race that is definitely worth watching. I don't know if Bethel can go through that unscathed, but it's the fact that they're all good that's so fascinating. We're used to the NESCAC side, but the MIAC is certainly deeper on the women's side than we've been used to. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, back when Amherst lost that first game, even way back when, I think Massey on the women's side already had Bethel like number 3 in the country. And I was joking with Gordon, he was saying, I need a new number 1. And I said, well, why not Bethel?
Yeah.
And he kind of laughed at me then, but I don't know that it would be that funny anymore. They've been playing really well.
I think it's a legitimate argument. If you want to go outside New England for a number 1 team, Bethel's probably worth a conversation. Bob, we'll come back to you here. ODAC, listen, I think Randolph-Macon made a huge statement this weekend, holding Guilford to less than 40 points and winning. But Virginia Wesleyan's back in this mix. Things have gotten interesting atop the ODAC.
Yeah, it's been an interesting race from the start of the season when we were talking about who's the top 25 team and who are the favorites. So you've got Randolph-Macon is 7-0. They're undefeated in the ODAC right now. Virginia Wesleyan is 6-1. Lynchburg is 6-1, and Roanoke is 5-2. Guilford is not even in the right now in the conversation. They're 4 games back. They're 4-4. But the interesting thing is when you look holistically at like who are the Pool C candidates right now, Guilford is very much in the picture still because of some of the good wins they've had. So right now it's, to me, Randolph-Macon, Virginia Wesleyan, Lynchburg. But then if Guilford were to go on a run at this point, they're still alive here. So the ODAC is another race that's pretty fascinating at this stage.
Hampden-Sydney's 4-3 in conference. Remember, they got rid of Coach Nee in the offseason. This was a program that was in disarray, far from its history. And I'm not saying Caleb Kimbrough has figured it out. And by the way, if you talk to the rumors, he wasn't their first choice. We can go into that some other time, maybe on the marathon, about how that all debacle fell through. But he's gotten them in the right direction. I'd love to watch where that goes in the future. But, man, that ODAC race is worth watching. Remember, they all go to Salem Civic Center, or almost all of them go to the Salem Civic Center to play the final 3 rounds of that tournament. The women's side is chaotic as well. Back to you. OAC race. Ryan, we got a big one coming up. Mount Union versus Marietta on Wednesday, but there's more going on than that.
Yeah, I mean, but really it is second, through 8th for them. They have an 8-team tournament. I was looking today as I was going through the ballot. Marietta has only had 1 single-digit game in conference so far. I mean, they have just been dominating the OAC, which is not something you would ever normally say, right? That usually that's such a tough conference, and it is for everybody else. But Marietta really seems to be strong. This game's going to mean a lot. I mean, if they beat Mount Union with any sort of gap between them, they're really going to start running away with this thing.
Mount Union 12-3. The 2 of those losses coming on back-to-back days at Thanksgiving. They've lost one since. It was to Heidelberg. I'm fascinated on how that's going to turn around. Women's side, the race isn't as crazy as I thought it would be. Baldwin Wallace on top. John Carroll's in the mix, which is great to see. And Ohio Northern, and then it's kind of everybody else. I know we got a bunch more to get through, so let's see if we can skip along. Bob, ASC race. You wanted to talk about the ASC race.
It's a good one. It's a really good one. The ASC is split into a couple different divisions, and in one of those divisions, you have a great race at the top between East Texas Baptist at 6-0 and UT Dallas, my adopted hometown team here in Dallas, 10 minutes away. I root for the Comets.
That's why you wanted to talk about the ASC.
It's actually an awesome race. UT Dallas is 6-1. LeTourneau is 4-2, and LeTourneau is very much in the South regional ranking conversation. You have Louisiana College 4-2 and Belhaven 4-2. Then the other side of the division, you have really 2 teams that are battling there. You have Sulross State at 5-2 and Mary Hardin Baylor, the team that beat Platteville, at 4-3. So to me, when you talk about parity in Division III, remember that UT Dallas beat Stevens Point and Mary Hardin Baylor beat Platteville. That is the Division III landscape that we're in, and I think it's awesome. And that ASC race, whoever comes out of the ASC is going to be a team that can absolutely advance to a Sweet 16 and an Elite 8, I believe.
Yeah, and remember also we have this, and we've been doing it with basketball. We have this kind of several-year experiment where we don't play conference opponents in the first round. It could at least shake up the bracketing at least a little. We'll see how it all shakes out. Ryan, let's jump. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the way that our schedule works this year, though, does mean we may get a second weekend home game in Texas, too, if we've got one of those teams coming out of there.
That's a good point. It certainly shakes things up with a solo game. We're not going to have 8 sites. We're going to have 8 sites. We're not going to have 4. So it could shake. Good point. Right. I didn't think of that. Speaking of Great Lakes, NCAC race, I mean, we talked about Worcester-Wittenberg, obviously, but that conference is deeper.
Well, yeah, because we have Worcester sitting atop the conference, but it's still just because of the tiebreaker with that win over Wittenberg, because they've already lost, I think, Ohio Wesleyan. And Wabash is playing great this year. Allegheny's been really good. Oberlin's been pretty good. They don't have winning records down there towards the bottom, but those teams have been a lot tougher than they have in the past. It's definitely not a walkover with the top 2 or 3 teams like it has been in recent years.
That's a good point.
With Wittenberg, we've talked a little bit on the chat boards and things about their strength of schedule right now. They're sitting, their winning percentage right now is .933, which is elite. Their SOS, however, is .486, which of any,
it's kind of bad.
I bet you of any top 25 team, that is the worst SOS in terms of the criteria used for the tournament. So they have to play with a little bit of urgency right now, and that if they were to drop a couple games, if they were to lose when they shouldn't lose, I think all of a sudden Wittenberg goes from like the number 2 team in the country to in some trouble for Pool C. So I think they've got they've got maybe a little more urgency than Worcester in terms of where they stand on the resume.
If they're looking at it that way, I mean, who knows if teams look at it. I want to see it in a 2 weeks, maybe see how it's shaked out in 2 weeks' time with more games. But I know you're talking about this year. Historically, remember, we were talking about Lancaster Bible. Could take their first loss of the season in the conference title game and be left out of the tournament as a top 25 program with an SOS that was sub 450. We're not at the same total level there with Wittenberg, but that's the kind of talk or the area we're dancing. And that's where I think the women do a better job, where sometimes they reward that win-loss percentage and don't overinflate the strength of schedule as if that means something about your team's strength.
Yeah, in the last 3 years, no team has gotten a Pool C. If you look at all 62 Pool C beds, unless there's gotten a Pool C under .500 SOS.
Right. Well, that's period, since it came into existence.
Yeah. If it extends back, that's even more data that suggests that. And look, Wittenberg's SOS may float up to .5 something, right? So it's a long way to go. But right now, they're not as comfortable probably as it looks if you looked at our poll, the top 25.
I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we do also have to remember they're going to be favored in literally every game they play right through the conference tournament, most likely, assuming they beat Worcester in the return. But, it's probably not something they're really too worried about more than just winning the next couple of games.
Without diving in the rabbit hole too deep, maybe we can take advantage of this on the marathon show in a week and a half time. But this might be an example, though, of a team and a scenario that breaks the mentality that we've been having on the men's side of how the SOS is so, we got to keep it. This might be that scenario that helps us break that scenario. Ryan, I'm going to stick with you real quick. SUNYAC. I give up. I thought I had the SUNYAC pegged. I am done.
Yeah, we got 4 teams with 1 loss. Brockport and Potsdam are 6-1. Oswego and Oneonta are 5-1. Those 4 have kind of separated themselves a little bit. They're 2 games up. Almost certainly one of them is going to win this thing, but it's anybody's guess at this point. There's a while you think, at the beginning of the season, Oneonta was the favorite, and then everyone, Oswego had some big wins early on, and then, Brockport's always strong.
Portland's coming on strong.
Right. It's just so hard to figure out what's going to happen from night to night. And now we're throwing in winter weather and travel and, everything else that happens in upstate New York. So who knows?
Well, it's Plattsburgh coming back to earth. Obviously a coaching change there, but also lost a talented senior class, including a talented player. That's also helped kind of break things up. But the SUNYAC's always been just a hodgepodge sometimes because, winter weather can – you travel to Plattsburgh. You don't want to travel to Plattsburgh, but that can ruin your day. Bob, jump back to you, UAA. We talked a little bit about it already. Is this WashU's? Well, it was this Emory's, but now is this WashU's?
No, I don't think it's – I think right now if you were going to pencil in, like, who's the projected Pool A at this very moment, you'd have to say it's WashU, I guess, because they're the highest-ranked team and they're undefeated in the conference. But, again, I think this is where you have to just look at conference races and say in really good conferences, when the favorite goes on the road to a team that's, let's call it like the number 3 picked team, Brandeis, let's just say, or 4, you consider that a game that the favorite's probably going to lose, or it's going to be a really tough one. So I think all that happened today in Massachusetts is that Emory lost a very tough road game against a very good conference opponent. I don't think it's reason to think that Emory is not every bit kind of maybe 1B, but I think the race did change a lot, because for a while there we were wondering, is Emory going to run away with the UVA? And I think the answer now is you have WashU, you have Emory, you have Rochester, you have Brandeis. And by the way, Chicago and some of the other teams can beat anyone on any given night.
Absolutely.
So the UAA, to me, the great thing about that result today was it really kind of turned it into the meat grinder that the WIAC, the CCIW, and some of these other conferences, I love to see that it turned into such a competitive race today.
The only thing we know about the UAA is it'll be the first automatic qualifier. That's all we know.
We do.
Ryan, jump back to you. I'll give you a pick, buddy. NESCAC or NUMAC, or do you want to dive and do both?
Well, I think the NUMAC is the more interesting one. With the NESCAC, playing the single round robin in the NESCAC makes it, Colby is 4-0. They're, they've already played 40% of their games.
Yeah,
that's a lot less exciting. When you look at the NUMAC, though, you have 4 teams at 3-1. None of those 4 is Babson.
True.
You've got Clark coming in and winning a big game, and Emerson's winning a big game. 5 teams playing really well in there. Who knows what's going to happen? And these are not, Springfield, Babson, WPI have all been getting, votes this year. Emerson was coming in, but, they were picked pretty high by a lot of people. This is a really competitive conference, and we've definitely got Pool C consideration in here as well.
And don't forget Suffolk. Oh, I'm sorry. His instinct was to bring up Suffolk again.
Right.
Good point about more games, and so it makes the NUMAC race more interesting. My only thought about the NESCAC was Amherst loses again. Tufts seems to right themselves back up after a tough loss. Colby gets the win over Middlebury. Bates gets the win over Hamilton. All of a sudden, it's getting ridiculous that tournament is likely to not go at all, according to anybody thinks it will. Which is getting normal.
Right. And I feel like there's just a little less drama in these conferences that have 8-team tournaments, right? Because you're not going to really have contenders that miss out on that opportunity. And so, it comes down to seeding. But even in the NESCAC, that hasn't meant a whole lot in recent years. There's pride in winning the conference, obviously, and setting up your Pool C consideration. But just to me seems a lot less drama going on up there.
Fair. Thought there was one more question I was going to throw at you guys, and I am now not finding it, which means either we did it or it wasn't as great a question as I thought it was. I don't have it, so I'm not going to worry about it. Top 25s, Ryan's admitting he's scrapped his and started over, done a lot of that yeoman's work. Bob, where do you stand on the ballot that's due tomorrow?
I think the one last week, I was sort of in scrap it and start over mode. And this week, I think I'm still okay with where I was last week. I got to move a few teams around a little bit. I think Wittenberg is going to fall very significantly for me. I was one of those that had him way, way up high. I think I'll probably have him more around the 10 or 11 range. And other than that, I don't think there's drastic things coming. A lot of these losses, I try to look at, is it a conference game? Is it on the road? So I'm trying not to overreact to the big wins and losses at this point. I feel pretty good about where I'm at on my ballot heading for tomorrow.
Found the question from Brendan. Sorry, Ryan, real quick. Unfortunately, I had to miss much of the show, which is not an excuse in my book. It says, are any of you voting for St. Norbert in the top 25? And do they have it? Well, I'll follow up with the second one in a minute. Any of you guys voting for St. Norbert? I know I don't think I am, but I've had them on my radar. I wanted to see a few more games. But I could be wrong on that.
I voted for St. Norbert, and what anchored it for me, a lot of seasons St. Norbert has come out of there with a really gaudy winning percentage and a very weak schedule. But the fact that St. Norbert, went and played and beat, was it Oshkosh? I need to pull up.
Beat Oshkosh.
And did they beat Eau Claire? I think they
beat Eau Claire. They did.
Yes. So 2 of the teams, so the WIAC co-leader, Oshkosh, they beat. And Eau Claire, that has all kinds of good wins and is very much in the Pool C conversation. Those wins, to me, made me look at St. Norbert. And when I look at them, I think their losses are to maybe is it Elmhurst and Benedictine, something like that, right?
Both on the road, first 2 games of the season. Right. They haven't lost since November 16th.
Elmhurst and Benedictine are 2 of the highest ranked teams in the central region if we were to try to aggregate that today. So I'm voting for St. Norbert. I can't remember exactly where, but I also think they're in pretty good shape on Pool C. If you look at their winning percentage, they once have an SOS now that's really good. Usually they have a bad one. I think they're getting to be in pretty good Pool C shape if they.
Yeah, that was the follow-up. Any chance at Pool C if they don't get the Pool A weak conference strength, but they played some interesting non-conference games. First, I think the conference strength has improved a little bit, but you're right. They went and challenged themselves. I've got them at 16, by the way, on last week's ballot. So, yeah, no, I'm impressed with what they've got going on there.
I moved them up considerably from last week to this week just based on the record they have. And now that everybody else is losing, it's looking better and better.
Right, that's true, too.
And you've got, the conference has improved. Lake Forest is pretty good. Monmouth, even without Carius playing, is still a pretty solid team. And they're winning by a lot, right?
Yes.
That's the other thing. Is often St. Norbert has had, a mixed conference record, or they've had a lot of close games in that conference, but they are dominating right now, and that's a good sign.
They're an 867 winning percentage, and their SOS is .554. That is it's an incredible resume right there, and they've got some good wins. So to me, St. Norbert is in a good spot, and as a CCIW IW fan Pool C watcher, I'm like, please, St. Norbert, just win that conference tournament, because I feel like they're not, and like some other team's going to win it. Lake Forest is going to win it, and St. Norbert's those bubble bursters, right? Because I think they're in a great spot for a Pool C.
Yeah.
Is this where you say you don't want Will Carius getting better? Is that the?
I just want to win their tournament, please, St. Norbert. I'm your biggest fan. Just win the NWC. It'd be awesome.
St. Norbert's resume. Back to that: 4 games against Wisconsin schools, a win over Eau Claire, a win in overtime against Oshkosh, a win over Superior. I realize that might be the outlier, and a win over Stout. What's more impressive, they got them all at home. They got all 4 of those games around the holidays at home. Hats off to them. Definitely went out there and challenged themselves a little bit better. And I'm surprised they're 25th. If I'm voting 16, I know you guys are voting. I think maybe those voters are still lingering on some of that stuff. But if they continue winning, now that 554 might fall a little bit as they get back into conference play. But I don't think it's going to fall into danger levels at all. So that's good to see. Guys, as always, we went long, but I appreciate the time and all that to join me on the show. Final thoughts as we head into another crazy week of Division III, and Ryan, I'll lead with you.
No, just looking forward to another great week. Great games happening. We got Whitworth Whitman's coming up this week. We've got Randolph-Macon headed to Virginia Wesleyan. Just more great basketball that's going to show us more about who's ready to play.
Yeah. Bob, your thoughts?
I would just go where Ryan went earlier in the show, which is that you have an opportunity to watch every game. So I spent some time today watching that Brandeis Emory game, and you learn a lot about teams by watching them. And so everyone's got a great opportunity in your free time to pull up some of these games in parts of the country that you would never watch. Watch a SUNYAC game, watch a game in the ASC, watch a game in the MIAC, the Northwest Conference. It's pretty fun to see some of the places that you don't know much about. So I would just say take advantage of that. It's awesome.
Awesome. Hey, guys, thanks as always. Really appreciate the time, and enjoy the week, and I'll look forward to talking to you down the road.
All right, guys. Thank you.
That's good.
Ryan and Bob joining me on the Top 25 Double Take, more of a conference take, as it were, but there's so much good stuff going on in the conference. It was definitely worth it, and I really appreciate the time they took to join us on the show. We're going to wrap things up, though. If you have any final, absolute, last-second questions, get them in now. Again, new Top 25s come out tomorrow evening. I think on the women's side, you're going to see some shaking up. On the men's side, it's constant, right? Oh, by the way, quick note. Craziness. Sam Hargraves beat his former team on a layup with 0.3 seconds on the clock. I did mean to get that in. Jeff just didn't have a real good spot to put it in. So on the men's side, you've got 3 losses in the top 5. I think Middlebury will fall and Colby will take a big step up. You're going to see Emory maybe take a hit. I don't think it's hard as a hit as Wittenberg and Middlebury will take. Platteville, who knows what to do with them. And then you've got some others here where it gets interesting. And it's also the fact that the receiving votes category took a hit as well. On the women's side, I'm going to be blunt. I know Tufts is the number one team, and I know they beat Amherst in overtime, and it was at Amherst. But I don't know if Tufts is the number one team in the country. Maybe it's Bowdoin, though Bowdoin hasn't gotten that true test yet. Maybe it's Hope. Hope is dominating the MIAC, but Hope doesn't exactly have a great resume. Not when he played Benedictine twice. Bethel is sitting in 13th and undefeated. If they're not in the top 5 this week, I think we need to have a conversation, because I think their resume is better than DePauw's. I think it's better than Whitewater's. I think it's better than Wartburg's. It's better than Transylvania's. It's better than Loris, and it's better than Mary Baldwin Wallace. I think Bethel deserves to be in your top 5, and I'll be fascinated. I don't vote in that poll, but I'm fascinated to see how that turns out. So that's going to do it for us tonight. I'm just checking real quick to see if any of you jumped any last-second questions for us. By the way, Travis John, I did see your note about Potsdam's leading scorer not being back, but I don't think at this point that's a factor. Let's see. First off, Thursday we'll be on the air, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. We will talk primarily East, Mid-Atlantic, Great Lakes, and West, and we will have our WBCA Center Court segment. One of those regions is going to get possibly dropped, but we're going to have to figure that one out. I got to go back and look at my notes. Got a lot of good teams we have on the docket possibly to get on that show. Next Sunday show, 7 o'clock Eastern Time as normal. Then January 30th, and I can't believe we're almost there, we will have the marathon show. Right now I'm betting 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time will be mainly segmented. We got guests. We're going to go out and make the push this week to get those booked, get those guests on, and then the 8 and after will be our free-for-all show, depending on how we do with guests. Also a reminder, convention is this week, the NCAA convention. We will try and talk more about it on Thursday, which just adds to what is already going to be a full show. But we'll try and talk more about Thursday about what's going on. I do have my pulse on some things that are important, including new region setup moving forward starting in 2021, right? Let's see, 1920, 2020. Yeah, so the 21-22 season would be the new regional lineup. I think the last hurdle, as it were, will happen this week. I think it gets over that hurdle for the most part, and then it's a rubber stamp after that, in my opinion. But there's other things up, too. So we'll get maybe a little bit of a tap dance into that, but we'll definitely talk about what did happen at the convention in more depth, we hope, on the marathon. Then Super Bowl Sunday, we will not have a show. We'll have the show the next day. I think I've done it daytime, but I'll double-check if it's not an evening show, but we'll figure that out. We'll just stay with us on social media and such as we keep you up to date on all of that. And that should do it. There, I gave you time in case anybody had questions to get anything in, and I think we're done, which is great. I want to thank our guests for coming on the show. We had an absolutely awesome show. Really appreciate everybody coming on the show. From Rhode Island College women's basketball, Jenna Cosgrove. I want to from Elmhurst, it was John Baines, and from Center, Greg Mason. Also want to thank their SIDs, Kevin Judy at Elmhurst. Want to thank him, Scott at Rhode Island College, Scott Gibbons. Appreciate his time, and of course from who am I forgetting? Center, Kyle. I want to thank Kyle from Center for his help. And, of course, the coaches for coming on the show. We'll be off the air until Thursday. I hope you enjoyed the show. Or if you listened on demand, hope you enjoyed it that way or through the podcast. You've been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com for the WBCA NABC Studios. I want to thank our partners at BlueFrame Technology. If you're looking to upgrade your web streaming experience, especially using production truck software to stream your events, make sure to give BlueFrame a call or check them out online. BlueFrame Technology can be found at blueframetech.com. They are a rapidly growing and certainly successful streaming platform, but the software, production truck software, something we use a lot, and Hoopsville has been using as well. We hope you give them a call for your streaming needs or your production truck needs, whatever the case may be. Tell them we sent you along. That does a long way to help. They also are what's the word I want to use? They are instrumental as well with our streaming capabilities, especially on Team One Sports. You can either watch us on the Team One Sports app, team1sports.com/Hoopsville is our main home, as it were, for video. You can also watch us on Apple TV, Roku, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV. So you get to see my big face on the big TV, as it were. And we want to thank our friends at BlueFrame Technology for their assistance. Again, BlueFrameTech.com. That's BlueFrameTech.com. So again, Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern, Sunday, 7 o'clock Eastern. Then it's the marathon on the 30th. Then we're off for Super Bowl Sunday. We'll be on the air on that Monday show instead. There is a Thursday show coming up that we have to figure out. The reason we're doing the marathon on the 30th is because the next Thursday I am busy with basketball games, and there may be some other challenges, but we'll figure them out as well. So that'll do it. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you back here Thursday at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Once again, thanks to our partners D3 Hoops, WBCA, NABC, BlueFrame Technology, and any of you out there who want to support us as well. Some of you asked about fundraising capabilities. I think before the marathon we will get something up and running regarding that as well. That'll do it. Good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. You've been listening to Hoopsville. If you want to talk about Division III basketball, you've got to listen to Hoopsville. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy some basketball, and we'll talk to you on Thursday night. Good night.